Well, I just smacked my keyboard as soon as I... Oh, my headphones are on backwards. Okay. I'm put together, it's fine. Hello, Kape. My screen is flashing. Uh-oh. That's good. My screen has been doing... Since I have had my new desk, I have had a proper dual monitor setup, and my screen has been having weird issues, and I don't know if it's a GPU defect or if I need to update drivers. It went away for a week and now it's back when I just started streaming. I'm already immediately distracted. Good lord. Today, is there even anyone waiting in the chat, by the way? No, there's not. Okay. Well, that's fine. I'm alone. I like chill streams. What in the world was I talking about? Oh, we're going to be talking about Arlecchino today. Obviously, from the thumbnail, and hopefully, obviously. She's in a weird state of, I don't think there's that much that's that good to talk specifically about because she's gotten so many friggin' changes that I don't even think it's good to say anything specific about her, past pretty vague generalizations. But anyways, I mean, if any Hoyo employees watching, I definitely am not going to talk about any specifics of Arlecchino's kit because it's impossible to know specifics. And, oh frick, I just entered a quest. Oh, kill me. Hello, peoples in chat. Anyways, after a few people join, I'm going to, go and react to an animation thing. I was asked, functionally by my partner company, Yomi Hollig, who is paid by Hoyoverse. So, functionally, Hoyoverse indirectly asked me to react to an animation thing, which is pretty cool. I don't know why randomly they asked me to do this. Normally I just tell them no, but I am this time because I actually I'm pretty passionate about animation. I don't really talk about that, but I guess the way to summarize it, like I'm passionate enough about animation that, you know, this might be a hot take to some people. Like if I told this to my family, oh, I just knocked my water bottle down. Okay, everything is falling apart. This is why I should have a camera, apparently, because you would be able to see that probably. Anywho's, what was I saying? Oh, animation. Oh, this is really put together today. Oh, Christ. Is my stream at least working? Yeah, it is. Wow, what a world. Hello everyone in chat. Let me get out of this quest. I don't want to do this. See, this is my problem with the quests. Is like when I want to do the quests, I never end up like triggering these things on purpose. And then when I'm always trying to do something else when I trigger them, and then that ends up further ingraining in me the habit of like skipping through the dialogue and ignoring the quests, even if sometimes they have like interesting story writing stuff going on. Like, ugh. Anywho's, I escaped. Thankfully it's not an hour. So, yeah, animation. Christ, I kept knocked down my water bottle. It's fine. It didn't spill. Thankfully, my water bottle has a twisty cap thing. But I also knocked other things. I knocked down my water bottle, which knocked other things off of my desk. I don't know if you heard it. It was behind the microphone, and the microphone's pretty good at canceling things. So yeah, animations. We're gonna react to an animation simply because, or technically a collection of animations, because it actually is something that interests me. I really like animation. I personally, the hot take that I have that would be a hot take depending on who you are. Particularly if I told my family this, is that I think animation is as far as allowing human creativity to shine more in like video media. I think animation is superior to live action vastly. Takes far more effort to do than live action, and far more creative vision, and offers far more creativity in how you might show things. And that's what animation I think is great for. But, you know, there's a general stigma, particularly in the United States, I'd say, with people and animation that annoys me. In that, you know, mostly in that, like, oh, it's something's animated, it's a cartoon for children. If you live in the United States and, you know, like any kind of animated media, you gotta deal with that stupidity a lot from people that exist. Anywho's, is my chat dead? I saw, like, No, okay. No, by chat dead, I didn't mean... I mean, it's dead by the fact that people weren't talking, but not dead by the fact that it was broken. Which is good. I prefer people not talking, but... Anywho's, old-style Disney animation is greater than whatever the F they're doing now. Yeah, I don't disagree. I really... See, part of the reason... Like, the man that I'm... The weird color flashing of my display is making me feel like my computer's going to explode. Oh god, it did it again. I'm like 99% sure you don't see it on your screen, but it keeps on flashing on the bottom of my screen. It's highly concerning. If the stream crashes, you know why. But yeah, old style Disney animation is fantastic. I personally believe a large part of the stigma in the United States around animation is because of Disney, and Disney pandering towards children, to say the least. But like Disney isn't animation, but to many adults, Disney is animation. And yeah, Disney's animation style used to be much better and much more unique, and now all of Western animation is just like, you know, 3Dify all the things, and it just looks all very samey, and it makes me sad. It's like taking, you know, that which was special about animation and making it more live actiony. And blech. That's all I can say. Not that like there aren't fantastic animated movies that, you know, Western media companies create. There's lots of cool stuff going on. You know, Spider-Verse is freaking amazing. And there's stuff like Puss in Boots was inspired and heavily inspired by some stuff with Spider-Verse and Puss in Boots, the new Puss in Boots movie. That came out like a year or two ago. My friend worked in the movie. And, yeah. So, anyways, our Arlecchino chat, we're going to talk about that after some people join. Let's go do dailies quick. Yeah, it looks like not many people are going to enjoy this stream. Man, is this going to be my lowest viewed stream ever? Because, like, I didn't... This is a normal day of stream. Not that I've been streaming much lately, but, like... YouTube been kind of rough lately. Like, I'm not gonna lie. This is a dead patch, so it's like hard to evaluate because I feel like a lot of players are... Stop flashing! Oh my god! Like last week, a week or two ago was my internet, and now my whole computer's gonna self-destruct. What a fantastic world! The landscape of Genshin right now, I think, concerns me. I mean, it's concerned me for a while, but. Basically, my style of content seems like it's not what people care about. Care about watching. And quite frankly, why am I spending weeks worth of effort farming in game, planning out things, editing for videos that don't perform very well? And to be clear, I wouldn't say a lot of my videos lately have performed poorly, per se. It's more just... Oh, I'm going to do a single plunge. Sad. Kave too strong. Speaking of, I gotta fix Farina's build. Give me a second here. Wait, what did I... Oh, I actually haven't tested this yet, so you know what? Let's try this. This is gonna be very silly. Bear with me here. Okay. And then we need an ER timepiece. Yup. Then we need an EM goblet, ideally with all the frickin' ER. That has a little bit of ER. 17%, 22%, that's on you though. Here we go, we'll take this one. And then Gilded Dreams EM circlet, there we go, 4-piece Gilded oh, this is not enough ER though. That's annoying. Okay, realistically, this build would require fab then. Hmm. That's unfortunate. Can I get away with full EM on Fab without Freedom Sword? Well, no, man, I really want Freedom Sword. The reason I want Freedom Sword in this team is because this video will come out in next week, I think. I was hoping Kave was going to be on Nuvilet's banner so I could, you know, time it better, but I've had this video saved and wanted to make it for like a month. Anywho's. It's probably because you streamed now earlier than usual. I streamed 30 minutes earlier than usual. So, anywho's. It depends on the story. I think love story should be old type Disney and action one, something like Spider-Man. Yeah, that's fair. So, well, whatever. We'll just keep right on this silly build right now. Or ER is a problem, though. So, anywho's, okay, yeah, we got more viewers now. So, the rambling I was supposed to say is about YouTube's, which is just like a thought in like the underlining the content I'm making, and is, you know, when I see, right, I'm making content in part because I think there's something valuable in what I'm doing in showing how I am enjoying Genshin. That's what I've tried to steer my content towards. Showing just, you know, me playing around with silly builds, because it's how I've gotten value out of playing Genshin long term. And that's kind of all there is really to it. But what people actually just want to watch is, you know, spending $300 on Genshin. And I'm going to test the waters a little bit, I think, with Arlecchino. I wasn't intending to, like, whale or anything for Arlecchino on my main account. I have, this is my main account right now, right? And I have plenty enough wishes to guarantee Arlecchino. I think I have, like, 20 pity currently. And a guarantee from Cloud Retainer's banner. And in total, I have, you know, like, I have enough basically to guarantee, even if I didn't have a guarantee. So, there's not that much interesting as far as wishing wise. Like, because it's not interesting, I wasn't even necessarily planning on making a wishing video for Arlecchino on my main account. But I think I might do something along the lines of the same vein as the Chronicle banner video, mostly to test the waters. Because on like a business sense level, I'm kind of feeling like it might make more sense to just refocus stuff a little bit, and, you know, edited videos can be more sparse, and I can spend more time making either more videos that will make more business sense, like, you know, apparently spending money on the game, or I have a stroke, or videos that like take more effort, right? Like for example, I could put more effort into even, like, you know, Kave videos, right? I could take an approach to doing a higher quality style. I have personally chosen the approach of trying to be consistent with releasing different things that I'm playing around with in the game on a weekly basis, which I think helps, like my message of like, hey, here's all the ways you can mess around with the game. But so many of those videos have been non-successful that it just feels like it's not even worth my time at this point, almost, to do it like weekly edited videos for this style of video, in favor of just doing the smart business thing of being like, oh, there's a new character, what does X amount of dollars get me from this character's banner? What does X amount of dollars get me from Arlecchino's banner, right? And to be clear, those videos, like I have to get a not insignificant amount of views on those videos to even break even on them. But they're also statistically a lot more likely that I will at minimum break even. I can tell you, like, I'm much more than broke even on the wishing video for the Chronicle banner, and I don't think I'm going to get, you know, the level of success on the Chronicle that I had with the Chronicle banner video every single time I do that. That's why I'm going to test out the waters with Arlecchino. This was a new banner. Like, I think a large part of the success of that Chronicle banner video is the nature of this being a brand new banner, which is not the case, you know, when there's just a new character. Like, a new character is a normal thing. I think way less people will care about, you know, if I made a video, what does $299.97 get you from Chiori's banner versus $299.97 on the new Genshin banner. I think that's a very big differentiator. But either way, I need to, like, test that difference, is kind of my feeling. So when Arlecchino comes out, I'm probably going to do a what does $299.97 get you on Arlecchino's banner. So I'm specifically going to, even though it doesn't even make sense for me to, because I have a bunch of savings, I am specifically going to buy some top-ups, probably through Paimon's Bargains again. They'll probably sponsor one again, so it won't cost me $300, but it would functionally have cost you, you know, $240 if you did it. So, or $299.97 if you did it through the in-game top-up, which is what the premise of the video is, right? And see what you get. And the reason that that's the amount, by the way, is because if you have 0 wishes, 3 top-ups is enough to guarantee, you know, 1 character. That's generally like the baseline amount that I would use for it, because that's enough to guarantee the thing and to illustrate how low value wishes can be. But it's also just like, I get why people watch them. They're good, entertaining content. Like the Chronicle banner video was entertaining. So, what about polearms only for the wishes? I don't want to. I might top up, to be clear, on polearms only. But I've been basically looking at polearms only as I want to keep that not like my main account here is, it's already tainted. You know, this account has already been tainted by you know, the spending of monies is what I would say. Like, I'm not a giggle whale or anything, to be clear, but I have spent the money to get the things I wanted, and whether that be rationalized, like Staff of Scarlet Sands was something I had to spend a little bit of money to get, and that was because I had content that I like really wanted to make for it, because I felt that just having this weapon on my polearm only account was not enough to properly showcase what I wanted to talk about in regards to the idea of doing a hybrid Raiden build. And so the point is, like, there's no returning my main account to a state before I, you know, have spent money on it. Polearms only has been kept, except for one top-up that I bought for C6 Candace. Polearms only has been kept low spender, and I'd kind of prefer to keep it that way. But we'll see what happens. I currently am more inclined to, after Arlecchino's banner, to try and do, like, force myself to stream more and do a whole lot of exploration streams during Arlecchino's banner on polearms only, if need be, for the purpose of, like, trying to chase down some constellations or whatever on Arlecchino. But it really depends on how lucky we get in the first place, because we'll have about 200 and some wishes, I think, at the get-go for Arlecchino, which, you know, if I you know, win the 50-50 for the, I'm actually on a 50-50, not a 37.5, 25%. I'm on a 50-50 for the weapon banner. So if I win the 50-50 for the weapon banner, win a 50-50 for C0 Arlecchino, there's a very good chance I get C0, C1, C2 even as possible, if I get lucky enough, without spending anything, like without even spending extra time farming. So, the point being, I don't want to have to top up in polearms only if I don't have to. Whereas this account is already far beyond the state of, like, top-ups making a difference in, like, how I view this account or how other people might view this account. So yeah. Anywho's, that's my rambles. I've got enough viewers now. I'm gonna read through chat quick. Wouldn't say they're a waste of time. We watched the, give me more idea. You know, I know a lot of you guys like appreciate them. I'm very glad that I have like 10,000 views seems to be like my normal default amount of views for a video, but it's not how 10,000 views is not what I would define as a well-performing video, personally. And I don't know. I still want to make that style content, to be clear, but I don't think I actually finished my thought earlier. That was my bad. I still want to make that kind of content, but it's not going to be in the same vein. It's either going to be in edited form. It's either going to be something that's more high effort, and like tries to change it around a little bit so that it's more appealing to more people, but still showing the same core thing. like focusing on less of the details of how the team functions in favor of just faffing about is probably the simple way, but trying to do more editing things or, you know, add more personality, whatever the F, I don't know, right? There's various different approaches I could have to trying to structure the videos in an edited format differently that would just take longer to make in order to make it more appealing to a broader audience. And that's something I could do if I restructured my focus on videos and like did things more as a, okay, I'm just going to keep doing the things that I think are valuable to put out on a constant basis, that I enjoy, and focus more on the actual, like, what the end result of the content it is. And then for other things, for a lot of things, what I suspect I would want to do, I'm working on trying to solve my internet problem, by the way, but I want to stream more. Even though I know it seems like I've been streaming barely at all because I've been super frustrated with my internet. But basically, I want to stream more, and I think stuff like, for example, the EULA videos. Realistically, I could have done, you know, just streams where I played around with the plunge EULA teams, and I played around with the unrelatable EULA team that I released today. And I could just keep that in streams, right? And I could talk in depth on the functioning of these teams on stream for those that care about it. And then I could, you know, answer questions about it and even take suggestions from people in case there was something I didn't think about, right? And I don't know, like I think there's potentially more value to a stream format for the people that care about that kind of thing. For videos that I think are less likely to perform well. Like, it doesn't surprise me that the EULA videos are not getting 100,000 views. Duh. But like, at the same time, I can tell you the video's only been out for like 2-3 hours. The unrelatable EULA video, I changed the thumbnail and title on it because the initial one was a little bit of an experiment to see if people reacted to a different style of title better, and it seems like they reacted to it worse. It hasn't been like had good traction to start, so I don't expect it to, what just happened? I don't expect it to do that well, but it's fine. I wanted to make it anyways because it was kind of just connected to the original Plungula video anyways. But anywho's, yeah, views beside all new unit guides are down across all Hoyo games. Probably just a bit of content fatigue. Yeah, and this is a dead as F patch, which is like a dead patch for me is more opportunity to just make, you know, content that's not based on the stuff they're currently running in game. But that doesn't really get views. So, you know, I don't know. I'm just rambling at this point. Point is, Arlecchino is upcoming, and I'm going to experiment with her banner a little bit and see if I want to transition the channel again, because it just kind of feels like to me I can achieve the same effect of what I am doing, but done in a different way, and maybe in a way that's better for everyone. So, yeah. Anywho's, there's 55 viewers now. Let's go watch the animation thing real quick. So if you just joined in recently, the reason there's Animator Dreams Genshin in the title of this stream is because, if I can find my button... Oh, wait. I should go sit down with Kaveh, otherwise he's going to make some noises. Sit your butt down, boy. And why is the blue water ball there? Blue water ball? I'm confused. What are you talking about? Oh, that's the... Oh, that thing. That's, the crystal flytrap. Anyways, so the animator Genshin thing. So yeah, basically, oops, let's tap it and make that look slightly better. Basically, yeah, the animators across the world assembled to draw Genshin Impact in 25 styles. Like I said in the start of the stream, I really like animation. And normally when they ask me, so my partner company Yomiholic, like they sometimes ask me to stop flashing. They sometimes ask me, you can't see the flashing. I'm sorry, I should just ignore it. It asks me to like react to something or like make a tweet about something. I don't use Twitter, so I'm just like, LOL, I can't tweet about this. This one was one they asked me to either tweet about or react to. And normally I say no, but because this was an animation thing, I was like, hey, you know what? Let's go. This is just on the Hoyo Fair channel, by the way. Which I have it linked. I believe I have the direct link in the video description. But Yeah, Hoyoverse is just, you know, collation of fan works derived from Hoyoverse IPs. And this only has 16,000 views, by the way. What the F? That's sad. Okay, all the more reason to react to it. like 4.2 million views, to be clear. It was a month old. 16,000 views. So anyways, yeah, animators across the world assemble to draw Genshin in 25 different styles. I love this style of video. So genuinely, like, this is like a perfect thing for me to react to and just be positive because, I mean, I'm biased and I like animation. And I think it's better than live action. So we're gonna watch this. And it's about 5 minutes long. I should actually mute the game in the background. Let me shut the. Give me a second. And blam. Okay. Let's see. Hopefully. Oh. I'm dumb. I didn't test audio levels. So let's see. Okay, I don't have a camera, by the way. I'm just gonna say nothing because that's how I react to things. Animal Traveler Simon. Oh, yeah, that's great. Wait, also, what quality is this running at? This is suffering from, like, I don't know if you can see this in the stream. You can probably see it. I'll go back a little bit to restart this animation because that was some great things. But this is a hardcore issue with you know, wait. I have a different account I can potentially watch this on. Let me see if, because I have a personal YouTube account that I can open up here, and watch it on that. That might have higher bitrate available. But you can see look at what the edges of like this circle look like, and like all the like JPEG artifacting, the video artifacts from the lower bitrate. It's at 1080p, this is why some people upload in 4K, by the way, on YouTube. But they're actually just like uploading a 1080p video that's upscaled to 4K, is because 4K YouTube has a lot higher bitrate. So like even if this video is rendered in or is 1080p source footage, upscale it to 4K, upload it as 4K to YouTube, and then people can select 4K on YouTube, and the higher bitrate will get rid of some of these ugly issues. It's also possible these issues were introduced in the creation of this video because, you know, the individual animators had to submit to Hoyoverse to then edit these videos together. It's possible Hoyoverse, whoever edited this together, was just an intern that didn't know what they're doing or something and rendered the video at terrible bitrate or something. Hopefully that's not the case. This does seem like a lot of JPEG issues for a 1080p video, but that's why I'm gonna go put it into my YouTube Premium account, which has a higher bitrate option usually, and we'll see what that looks like. So give me a second here, and blam. It does not have a higher bitrate option. Uh-oh. Okay, well, never mind. Well, okay, just in case it's a Firefox versus Chrome issue, I guess let me check through here. Oh wait, I didn't switch over. No, it has the same issue. Okay. Well, anyway, sorry about rambling about that. I just noticed that I'm supposed to react to it. Okay, this is not meant to be negative. This is either a YouTube problem or a process of like how Hoyoverse created this problem. So let's rewind a little bit to the it just makes me sad because like this animation is like goddamn, like this Masanobu Hiraoka probably said that wrong. Like that was a great animation, and then like the bitrate kind of pooped on it, which is unfortunate. Oops, I should not full screen, by the way. I'm just gonna restart the whole thing. So anywho's, I like to see pretty things, and the bitrate is preventing us from seeing the pretty things as much when things are moving fast. And that's sad. So anywho. I love that style animation. I don't know if there's a name for like that, but that's great. Oh, this is great too. This is whatever. I'm just gonna let it go. It's the first time I've seen a boar take more than 1 hit of damage. Paper style. Okay. A Hydro Traveler. Wow. We're gonna see every Traveler element. Yeah, yeah. That's great. That's someone that actually plays Genshin. Wow. How big is the whale? See, if we're gonna make 3D animation, Disney, do something like this. Please, Disney. I feel like whenever I watch like these kinds of videos, I just like feel ashamed at my own lack of creative ability. Ability is a lot times the wrong word. These are skills that are refined. Fuzzy. Nice. Pixel art. We need more pixel art games. I mean, a lot of indie studios make pixel art games. What do you... Is it just like a 90s, 80s, 90s anime art style? Like that's just like a credits roll from like an 80s or 90s anime. That's great. What? Who the heck was that? Stick figures, the elite, truly the elite style of animation. Generally, still a style of its own. It's not like I'm trying to undermine the. Oh my, that's so great! I love it. See, like creativity in animation, it's great. I should have set up a camera. You just see me smiling. But hey, look at that. Back to the door. Travelers finally leaving Teyvat. Finally. except for that's going to be in about 20 years after Hoyoverse mouth is all dry. Sorry. Why? Brain. Bad. Bad brain. You don't even need a negative butthole at the very end. Oh, they might not be happy with they did that. I'm sorry, Hoyoverse. I didn't mean to be a butthole, but look, I gotta poke fun at you sometimes. That was fantastic, genuinely. Let me bring audio back for the game. I'm glad yeah. So like I said, I like animation. I'm glad I chose to say I would react to that one. I definitely should have probably had a camera on, but I forgot, and also my camera the last time I tried to use it was broken because everything about my computer is exploding, and that scares me. And anywho's, yeah, that was fantastic, absolutely fantastic. I can't believe here. You know, I guess I'll link it in chat, but I will try to remember to put it in the pinned comment, and I'll probably put it in my Discord as well. Fantastic animation. You know, watch it yourself, share it around. That deserves far more than 16,000 views. Like that. A lot of work clearly went into all the animation there. If you're not familiar with like the general process of making animation, you know, 5 minutes of that kind of like each those are, I think there was like 25 different art styles, right? Each of those like 25 took a lot of work to create. On top of the work to like coordinate all those together, because obviously it takes coordination between all those things to like have those like cool transitions between the different things. And very awesome. Yeah, I don't know. It's the kind of thing I want to see. Like I love animation. Like it's just so cool seeing like the things people think of in animation and trying to present different visions for things. And it's why I like, you know, different like artistic styles for different styles of video games that emulate style, like things like that. In the same vein of animation styles, not that they're always animation per se, but anywho's, I do like it. It's very cool. Glad I did that. And yep, I do wish there was a higher bitrate version available, because there was definitely, particularly that one early on, was just like, man, there's so much like visual detail going on here and fast movement that the bitrate kind of murdered it a little bit, and it probably looked even worse because like to you guys, because it was, you know, bad bitrate to me that was then worsened by the fact that I'm streaming, which is inherently going to be worse bitrate to you guys, and it probably didn't look great. But that didn't like take away from the general enjoyment of it or anything, so it's fine. Watch it yourself, see if it looks any better to you. I don't know, let me know your thoughts in the Discord. I'll keep an eye out for anyone's thoughts. Sylvian or Sapphire, if you want to put it in the announcements tab, and use the, well, actually no, I'll put it in the announcements tab. I'll just do it right now before I forget, because I think it's cool. Yeah. Hey, check out this cool animation. I was hashtag. I don't know why I'm using a hashtag. Wait, no, it's cool collection of animations. It's actually dope. There you go. I should ping people maybe with that, but I'm not gonna ping people. And that's it. So, anywho's. It felt like the video was more like 10 minutes, not 5. That's what animation feels like sometimes. That's why, you know, when you watch a really long animated movie, you're just like, wow, how is this going on so long? I personally agree. I feel like you get more engagement per dollar for animated content. And per dollar? Per minute is what I meant to say, not per dollar. Yeah. Anywho's, animation's great. I want more animation in the world. Animators are awesome. AI for trying to like steal that. Like AI is super interesting on a technological level, but oh boy, anytime you even talk or think about it, there's like a heavy taste of dystopia. Like what AI should be doing is replacing, you know, the things in human life that are tedious, monotonous BS, and instead the work that's being done is using AI to replace that which is great about humanity, which is humanity's creativity. And it's like, yeah, it reeks of dystopian nightmare fuel. That's the direction that AI is heading in first, rather than, you know, automating the BS of humanity. Instead, it's like, nah, let's eradicate human creativity. Perfect. Yeah, 10 out of 10. Good job, chat. Good job, ChatGPT, and good job, OpenAI. Good job, Google. I look forward to the future. Sarcasm. I mean, I always look forward to the future because there's nothing else to look forward to. There is no going back. But at the same time, it do scare me. I think there's a lot of potential for it being fun. I've seen a lot of people using AI for fun. But I don't want... I quite frankly don't want people to have the ability to type in a text box, you know. Yeah, ChatGPT... I'm going to send this message to my brother. ChatGPT, please make an animation of Kaveh being a good boy. And then it, like, poops out that tier of animation, but it's just animation that was basically stolen from someone else's styling. And, like, yeah. So, anywho's. AI art is actually terrible. I'm not gonna say it's terrible necessarily, because like AI art is just based on real humans' art. I've seen AI art spit out some stuff that's freaking cool and like conceptually like off the wall, from what you would expect. And the ease of like for example, like AI art has a place. I do think. It's just how it's actually being used is scary. The best example I have is like for me and my friends do D&D every week, and we are not going to pay the artists. There is no circumstance where we are going to pay artists to like create portraits of like our characters. These characters largely invest in our head, and we are not like invested in the characters as a media property. We don't need art to visualize them. But AI art does allow us to like one of our friends just typed in a bunch of like she spent hours typing in a bunch of descriptors to try to get it to spit out something that like looked like she had in her head for the vision of her character. And that's a cool use case for it. She was not going to pay, like it was an equivalent art that would have costed hundreds of dollars, but it was not a use case that she was actually going to ever pay for. No artist's money was stolen because of the fact that my friend used an AI art tool to create a portrait of her D&D character, because it was never consideration in the first place, and it was never going to be that she would pay hundreds of dollars to commission an artist and have to deal with, you know, the complicated communication process that is involved in that, to be able to create such a thing. Like, it wasn't that significant of a thing. It was very just a casual use case, and I think it's fine for that. Because like you can't just, you know, use I guess it's more a problem when these tools get used professionally, right? When people start, you know, using these AR art tools not to just, you know, throw up a portrait for their own D&D character, but instead they start, you know, using these AI tools to generate portraits for D&D characters that they're then selling online. Like that's where the problem occurs. So, and that's where it potentially destroys human creativity, because ultimately, like humans are able to be creative and have a desire to be creative because they can potentially, you know, live off of it to a heavy degree. Not everyone lives off of it. Most people don't necessarily live off of it when they're creating art, to be clear. But a heavy part of the motivation is the fact that there is something to be gained, whether it be monetary value, attention value. Right? Like, there's a desire to create something because you think it's something valuable to share, and making it so like AI can just do things immediately and easily without, you know, the actual human effort put in is destructive to human desire and creativity to create such things in the first place that allowed the AI to create the things off of the things that humans created. And I don't know. It just feels like we might be heading towards a feedback loop of AI is going to create art that then trains other AI to create art off of itself. And that's weird. So, anywho's. The AI art is stealing from artists. It's not, but what did my friend's action do? Like, my friend didn't steal from any artist because there was no situation where they were going to pay an artist anyways. There was no stealing that happened. So again, I can tell you the art did not exist in any meaningful form, and we used it for as actually a better example of even a D&D character, because I guess you could make an argument that like if she really cares about the D&D character enough, she should pay for it. And like, that's fair, right? She doesn't care about it that much, I don't think, to pay for it. So again, I don't think it's a circumstance that makes sense, but I think in other circumstances, and this is one that absolutely does not make sense. We were doing book club reading the Malazan series for a year, and we finished the series just recently, by the way. So if you know about the Malazan series and want to spoil things, I'm good to be spoiled, but also don't spoil things for others. There are like major things in chat, but if you want to jump on Discord and talk about Malazan with me, I'm very down, because what a wild series. But the Malazan series is not like so popular that like I have more followers on my YouTube channel than the author of the Malazan series does on their social media pages, which is insane. And because the Malazan series is freaking incredible, and there's a ridiculous amount of characters in the Malazan series. We have a spreadsheet of like 700 characters in the series that most of them I think have some amount of perspective in the books, not like major perspective necessarily. Realistically, only like a couple hundred. A couple hundred have meaningful perspectives in the book, but anywho's, in the books, plural. It's a lot of books. And my point is, we use AI tools one night, and this is a one-night thing, just for funsies, creating art of a whole bunch of different characters and different like things that happened in the book that we were reading. Like stuff that would have been the equivalent of like, if we were going to commission artists to do this, we would have had to find artists that we liked the art style of, that fulfilled whatever our vision was, and we didn't even have a solid vision of what we wanted in the first place. So like it didn't even make sense, right? It wouldn't even make sense to commission artists in the first place because we didn't have a vision of what to even ask for. All we were asking for was like, hey, can you draw art of Ganos Piran, or can you draw art of Animander Rake killing the demon? Like we didn't have that actual vision of what we wanted it to look like to even like begin the communication process with an artist, even if we wanted to. But nonetheless, right, what we did was we created like probably 100 different pieces of stuff with AI art that, you know, would have cost thousands and thousands of dollars and an ungodly amount of time just on a communication level working with an artist to try to create these pieces. And barely anyone creates like art for the Malazan series. There's little snippets of cool stuff from like a couple of artists that were clearly passionate about the series that made art about it, but like other than that, there's like nothing online for art from the Malazan series. And so there's not even like stuff to, because like if you wanted to like commission Genshin art off of someone, right, something you can do to like ease the communication process is in trying to commission something from an artist is be like, hey, you know, here's this piece of Kave fan art. Can you like do it in this style but do this instead? Like there's no fan art to even reference off of for Malazan, right? So like, in point is the volume of things we created was like for simply the purpose of casual conversation as like a visualization tool for the books we were reading is pretty cool. And it spit out some stuff that was like wildly different than what we were envisioning, and didn't really fit the descriptor of what we even told it to do necessarily a lot, because it's AI art, does do goofy dumbass things. But point is, it's like that's not a circumstance where we were ever going to pay. We're never going to lump $20,000 together. Probably would have cost far more than $20,000, honestly, and spend the time communicating with an artist. There was nothing we stole from an artist there. Like it has personal use. It's just it shouldn't be abstracted out past personal use, and that's the problem. Anyways, that was a big ramble. Like using AR to make weird looking memes back when it was still used allegedly royalty free. Yeah. So, anyways, I don't use AI art for anything professionally if it's not obvious. That's the line. Don't use it professionally. You know, use it for personal silly use cases, and it's fine. That's ultimately the ramble is. Anyways, this is an Arlecchino stream, as you can tell. This is classic me stream. I'm sorry. Good lord. I talked about Arlecchino earlier. So, Arlecchino. Oh boy. Where to even begin? Arlecchino. So, if you haven't been following any leaks, which honestly it's not even worth looking into what the leak history of her is at this point, because she's been getting so many and significant enough changes that it makes it very hard to evaluate like her compared to other characters. What I can say is that, you know, the closest comparison, people are drawing a lot of comparisons to her. She's a mix of like Alhaitham, Hu Tao, blah 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 blah. But realistically, the closest actual objective comparison you can make is to Yoimiya, because Yoimiya is a normal attack pyro DPS, and Arlecchino is a normal attack focused pyro DPS. Arlecchino though is almost assuredly going to be a lot better than Yoimiya. Not objectively better in all ways. Yoimiya does still have like, you know, the range advantage, which is quite meaningful in my opinion. There's been a lot of situations on Polearms only where it's like, gee, it would have been nice if I had some range damage. And I'm not saying like it's completely the reason I'm saying this is because like I don't think she's a complete power creep of Yoimiya or anything, but I think it's the closest comparison. Yoimiya was made and designed to be a normal attack focused pyro DPS, and Arlecchino is made to be a normal attack focused pyro DPS. The way in which she achieves that is by interfacing with giving herself Bond of Life, but it's actually not Bond of Life like exists in the game currently. It's basically just an additional resource bar that Arlecchino puts on her own health bar, and as long as she has over 30% of that in her health bar, she has Pyro Infusion. One of the... I got you yapping even more. My back. It's all good. I thought I missed the Arlecchino stream. No, I talked about Arlecchino very briefly in the start of the stream. And then, anywho's, I should have done Nahida first. Dang it. It's I don't know. Arlecchino has had a lot of changes. And she's now like really hard in my opinion. Oh, I didn't do this. She's really hard in my opinion to properly like evaluate. Because of how many changes she had. Like, she got a complete rework in how her kit functioned, and it completely changed how, you know, we'd want to evaluate the teams that you use Arlecchino in. On like a measurable like an objective comparison level. But what's more important than just like the objective comparison, in my opinion, is, oh my god, my screen is flashing like mad right now. It's actually horrible. Again, I'm assuming you can't see it, but blinding flashes of like color and staticky color are happening. Not fun. The weird situation with Arlecchino is that like she's had so many changes that you can't place her, like I'm not gonna object. I don't have Hu Tao on this account. I should log on to Poems only to talk about some of her specific nuances more. She was made currently, the last major changes that happened, and there's currently rumored to be more major changes that we'll probably find out about tomorrow or the day after. I was originally going to stream about Arlecchino last week, and I had a whole bunch of specific notes about things to talk about, which some of them I'll go over here. But she ended up getting so many major changes last week, and I was just like, holy crap, I cannot talk about this character today. And I didn't. So, yeah. She was basically changed to have, like, to be less good in vape and better in... Why am I doing, like, no damage, by the way? Normally, I can do... Oh, I didn't use Farina's Burst. That explains it. What was I saying? She's had so many changes, and it makes her like I'm not really bothered doing recalculations for much. Or if you want to see calcs and that kind of data, if you want to see calcs and that kind of data, go check out. Actually, I might still not have an HP timepiece, and that's it. Go check out Stern or Jeff or something. They're much more spreadsheet, impact players. They both acknowledge the importance of non-spreadsheet impact. To be clear, they're both competent at that. They both have a bit different perspectives though, and both of them have done a meaningful enough amount of actual calcs so they can like break down the actual damage for you if you want to like use Arlecchino on a more meta level. I think though, if you want my summarized overall thoughts on Arlecchino, I think it's going to be likely that despite the fact that she has a healing passive, so if you're not aware, she has a passive that prevents her from being healed outside of her own ingrained healing ability. And the reason she has that passive is very important, because if she didn't have a passive preventing her from being healed, then anytime you played healers with her, she would have horrible anti-synergy with healers that like it would just invalidate being played with all healers in the game. And that would be really rough as far as team versatility goes, because oftentimes you just want to slot in a healer's defensive unit, and that would mean, slotting in a healer, a defensive unit, is making your offensive unit worse. So she has to have that not healing thing, and I think that not healing thing is just makes her kind of more interesting to think about playing. She has plenty enough healing in her own kit to keep her alive. She's going to be a very tanky character. She's going to be in the same vein of like Neuvillette in her ability to keep herself alive with her own heal. The difference is right now, this might get changed. Originally she didn't have healing on her burst, but right now she heals on her burst versus like her just doing her absorb the balls thing that Neuvillette does. And she has more control. Like Neuvillette can only be HP neutral because of his drain and gain. Arlecchino does not have any drain mechanic, so she's only going to be taking damage, but she also has like a damage resistance passive, so and pretty high base defense, and I think relatively high base HP too. So point being, like the low HP amount is like, her Miko is a 16,000 HP character, and she has a pretty low base defense. Arlecchino is going to have like 3,000 more HP, about 3,000 more HP. Should be about 18,000 at minimum at level 90, and then has, I believe, 800 or 700 and some defense versus like Miko's 600. So like Miko's a really squishy character. Arlecchino has a passive that higher base stats than someone like Miko, and has a passive that gives herself damage resistance too, and she can heal herself. So she's going to be a tanky character, and more tanky than I think people expect. And all in all, I would say Arlecchino is going to be, as far as pyro carries go, probably quite good. Compared to all pyro characters in the game, is she going to be the best one at certain things? Is she going to be the best pyro plunger? No. Is she going to be the best pyro vape? It's not showing the units I don't have. Why don't you show the units I don't have? Oh, because I didn't go on the right screen, that's why. Oh, I can't. Well, I was going to show Hu Tao. Hu Tao's the best pyro vape unit in the game, right? No, she's not going to be the best pyro vape unit. So my overall way I would summarize Arlecchino is that she is he is a terrible comparison. Arlecchino, as far as on-field pyro carries go, because she's a non-fielder, is a jack of all trades, master of some. I was originally saying master of none, but honestly it's looking like she is going to be the master of some things. Notably, what I was mentioning before, where she's a normal attack-focused pyro DPS. She's probably going to be, as far as damage output goes, ignoring the value of like range value from Yoimiya situationally, she's going to be the best, normal attack-focused pyro DPS. The notable thing, though, that other than like things like the tankiness, like I mentioned, that I think people are underestimating with her, and this is something I have not seen anybody mention, other than me. I have mentioned this in my Discord, to be clear. So you might be aware of it already. Is the fact that she keeps her bond of life off field. Remember, so I mentioned before, the way that she gets her infusion. I didn't use Freida's burst again? Oh, I did use it. It's already up. Okay. The way that you get her infusion is through her bond of life mechanic, or giving herself bond of life, and basically just through normal use of her using her skill, doing a charge attack on an enemy, you get a certain amount of bond of life at minimum in every situation. What exactly that minimum will be, I don't know. That's a value they keep on tweaking very significantly every week. So like it's pointless for me to even bother trying to give you an exact value for it, in my opinion. But basically, she gives herself enough of that resource to keep her own infusion up, and that threshold currently is 20%. It's currently rumored to be changed to 30%. But notably, you can swap her off field. You can swap Arlecchino off field with her Bond of Life on her. It will stay on her, and this could change too, to be clear. If this changes my opinion of the character extremely significantly. I think she's a much less interesting character and vastly less versatile of a character if this changes, but I don't think it will. Bond of Life stays on her when she swaps off field, which means she keeps her infusion. Like that means she functions like Noelle, right? Right, we're in, let's see if Noelle has her burst up.
As you wish.
I thought, frick. Not only does she not have her burst up, she isn't even close. Oh, good. So yeah, let's swap to Fab, I guess. Good lord. Just so I can showcase this. There we go. All right. And anyways, so Noelle keeps her infusion when you swap her off field, right? And this is something I really wish they would do more in characters, but they're doing it with Arlecchino. And this is a really big part of what makes me. I'm gonna get her on my main account unless they, if they change this, I might still get her. But anyways, you use her burst, right? And she gets a Geo infusion. Hey, that's cool. You can swap off field, use your other character's abilities, and then swap back to her and still have the Geo infusion. You can do the same thing on Arlecchino. And that is a really big deal for her team versatility. There is a ridiculous amount of team context you can imagine Arlecchino being useful in. Like any context where you can imagine a pyro carry might be useful, Arlecchino is probably someone that can be used in that context because of her freedom of allowing you to swap out. And like it's something on Polearms Only that one of the teams, I'll probably switch over to Polearms Only briefly here. One of the teams that I envisioned using Hu Tao for originally, with Shenhe, well, this was more when Shenhe came out, but was Shenhe, Rosaria, Hu Tao, Zhongli together. And the idea was, hey, Hu Tao can apply a bunch of pyro while doing charge attacks, such that, can't wait for someone to play physical Arlecchino. So such that Hu Tao can apply so much pyro that she can enable Rosaria to melt very easily and consistently, right? The problem is that both Rosaria and Shenhe really want to use multiple skills per rotation, both to keep up ideal uptime for Shenhe's buff, but also energy needs, both for like Shenhe's and Rosaria's energy needs. If you're pairing those two characters together, if they can only use one skill per rotation, both of the energy needs shoot up like a crap ton to a degree that's like not worth doing. So on Polearms Only, I find that I have to put Xiangling in the team to be the pyro enabler. But while Arlecchino has less pyro application than Hu Tao, I think she will still have enough pyro application to enable melts on Rosaria consistently. And even if she doesn't somehow, that would mean that in turn Arlecchino would melt instead, which would still be fine. So like it's an illustration of there is that ability to swap off field and keep her infusion, right? Means I can swap off field, I can use her burst, swap to other characters, redo Rosaria's and Shenhe's skill, swap back to Arlecchino and continue doing pyro application. Or continue doing pyro application and getting Arlecchino damage while on field. And that's strong. That's strong as far as not necessarily, it immediately magically makes teams do 8 million more damage, but strong in giving her a lot of team options, because the longer I've played this game, the more abysses come down to, like, do you have the flexibility to be able to deal with and reconfigure your teams with the characters you have to deal with whatever enemy situation the abyss is throwing at you. More than, do you have the damage output, it's do you have the ability to configure a team in a way to deal with this situation. And Arlecchino has a lot of versatility. Versatility, in my opinion, is a very, very big strength of characters. And versatility is exactly what I want to see for an on-field unit. Rather than, you know, a character that to get their damage performance to feel satisfying requires, you know, a fairly specific team context, right? For their kit to make sense. Arlecchino doesn't feel like that to me. Arlecchino feels like I could be happy using her anywhere I could conceive of using a pyro carry, generally speaking. And I think she's going to be uniquely better in a lot of cases. And without getting into specific numbers, because the specific numbers are a little bit up in the air. And this stuff could change. So like keep all this stuff in mind with a big grain of salt. It might change. They could remove they could add some stupid line in her kit that says, you know, her bond of life is removed when she is switched off field, and that would completely murder a lot of what I like about her. And at that point she's just a pyro carry, and you can get, not that you won't get value, not that she will be bad if that happens, but it will remove a lot of her potential team versatility. I don't foresee that will happen because I don't know why they would change it at this point. They've mostly just been changing like damage values and like how long her infusion lasts values all over the place. It's been a weird beta cycle for her changes. So anyways, all in all, I think she's gonna be very good. I also think one team that people are not like I've seen Zajeff mention it, like he mentioned this, but then he like just disregarded. He's like, it's not going to be very good. Zajeff doesn't play these teams. I play a lot of, not recently, but I've played a lot of Burgeon teams. Did I not finish my dailies? Did I? I don't know. I did. I played a whole lot of Burgeon teams. Wrong button. And the thing with Burgeon is you don't want to have too much pyro application, because too much pyro application means you're going to overwrite, you know, Dendro and Hydro that is being used to create Burgeon cores. So the ideal for Burgeon is that you want, you know, low enough pyro application but frequent hits to be able to trigger the individual Dendro cores. Because regardless of how much pyro can be applied to one enemy, the amount any pyro attack will trigger the Burgeon cores. And Arlecchino has a decent enough AoE in her normal attacks, in her general normal attack chain, that I'm pretty confident she's going to be a very good Burgeon carry. Like I genuinely think it might be possible just to do full, like, not that this is the ideal way to do it. I think that the ideal circumstance for Burgeon Arlecchino is to do something more like you do with Quick Bloom, right? Wherein you put an EM timepiece, or even there's potential for hybrid Arlecchino, where you do an EM Goblet and EM timepiece and Staff of Scarlet Stance. Anyways, and you know, you could do full EM, but you could even probably do full EM Gilded Dreams, or, you know, some mix of Gilded Dreams with a Burgeon build that Gilded Dreams gets a whole bunch of EM and a whole bunch of attack. Both things she would like in a Burgeon context, and, you know, put some crit stats and, you know, have some EM main stats with some, let's see, have, yeah, like EM main stats like this with some DPS stats and substats, and, you know, you're going to have an Arlecchino that's dealing meaningful damage. And this is something you can kind of achieve with Bennett already, with Bennett C6, and it's a big part of what, in my opinion, makes Bennett C6 quite strong. He enables a lot of Burgeon teams to be possible, but usually that requires either infusing someone else or using Bennett himself as the Burgeon trigger. And Bennett can be a good Burgeon trigger, but the way he has his attacks hit is not as good as I think Arlecchino would be, and he doesn't have as constant uptime as Arlecchino has for pyro application, to be able to trigger said Burgeon cores. On top of the fact that Arlecchino's base scalings make her a good normal attack DPS, you will be able to do Burgeon Arlecchino and hit big vapes at the same time, or should be able to. I might be wrong. I haven't played. It's something that, like, is very hard to, like, map out in practice of when all the application timings line up, when you have so many different, when you have Dendro, Hydro, and Pyro going on, and depending on when any individual element applies to an enemy, that can screw up the amount of cores being generated, etc., etc. So it creates a weird situation wherein like it's basically impossible to spreadsheet impact a Burgeon team, and this is, in my opinion, why I think the likes of Zajef ignore it, because they're too used to spreadsheet impacting stuff, and Burgeon is not spreadsheet impactable. Because it requires like assuming very specific timings to even like assume you're getting a certain amount of DPS out, but like the actual nature of how things happen in practice, in my experience, is even if the timings don't line up ideally per se, you're still getting like, okay, if you know the pyro application might interfere with a core generation, then the pyro application means you are probably getting a vape instead. So Arlecchino's mix of constant ability to have pyro going, that is controlled in a small AoE around her movement ability. She has a movement ability on her skill, which is quite nice. On top of her... Sorry, I've been ignoring chat. On top of her general, tankiness, will, I think, enable her to have a Burgeon playstyle. That most players will probably just build her for crit, but then give her an EM timepiece or whatever if they're doing this. But you can probably even go full EM. You can probably do hyper playstyle like I'm going to try, and it's probably going to be very strong. The nature of it is just like there's going to be so many ways for that team to be dealing constant damage, and it's going to have so much element coverage and have very strong AoE potential on top of single target potential that it's just going to be kind of gross. It's not that it's going to be necessarily perfect for every situation. It probably will have some downsides in needing, against the Weenut, wherein like needing to spend time setting up your character's abilities is going to make it awkward. But I don't know. I think Zajef and J-Stern are highly undervaluing the potential of Burgeon Arlecchino, because it's impossible to spreadsheet calc in since it requires far too many assumptions on the timings of application. So yeah, we'll see. Have you heard of the bug with her burst? I'm afraid it'll hinder her a lot if they don't fix it. What bug with her burst? I'm not sure what you're talking about. Are you talking about the fact that her burst clears Bond of Life? Of course it does. I think it's just a balancing thing. I don't think it's a problem. I don't think it's a bug.
I'll catch up.
Her burst, by the way, heals. When you use her burst, it heals 100% of her Bond of Life, and then also heals for 300% of Arlecchino's attack, which means on the low end, her burst should heal for like, as it currently is. Again, these values are probably going to change. On the low end, Arlecchino's burst will heal for like half of her HP. But on the high end, if you have like Bennett's, if you're like using Bennett, or you have just a lot more attack in general, if you're doing whatever other attack buffs, she should heal more than 50% of her HP every time you use her burst. And all in all, the end functional result is that you have a lot of control, basically. So even if Arlecchino like goes to 50% health and or less than 50% health, right? Because you took a bunch of damage, she's almost dead, right? Say she's at 10% health. You can choose to use her burst early when you have more Bond of Life remaining on her, which is, you're sacrificing damage output, to be clear. You're sacrificing damage output for staying alive, because if she's dead, you're not dealing damage. The point is, she offers a lot of player control with the way her healing functions, to be able to get a big heal. And depending on the exact team, the team buffs you have going, attack buffs you have going, she might heal up to like all of her health every rotation, and 50% should be like towards the low end. Although one thing I'm not sure I haven't seen clarification if it's possible that 35 to 40% might be the actual low end, but I haven't seen clarification on that. So anywho's, one of the new Burning Artifact set is going to be a good alternative to her next to her own set. Actually, I should talk about artifacts on her. I'm going to go log on to Poems only quick here, actually, and then I can talk about some things related to artifacts. Need to get Noblesse. Please, game. I want to be. I've been farming Noblesse and Strongbox just for an attack percent circlet. Okay. Okay. Whatever. I just wanted an attack percent. I just wanted an attack percent circlet. My Shun Yun needs like 2 more energy recharge rolls in this build, and then she's like fine. She will never basically have a problem. I'm pretty sure. And all it needs is a circlet with ER, but I'm just stuck in the game hates me. I cannot get an attack percent timepiece, or sorry, attack percent circlet with ER, whatever. Let's log on to poems only quick and I'll talk about artifacts on Arlecchino. One thing that's very interesting is Marshal Hunters. A big part of why I'm bullish, to be clear, on... I gotta log out first before I do this. Here, let me put the turtle up. Turtle. A big part of what makes me pretty bullish about bullish about Virgin Arlecchino. By the way, Virgin Arlecchino might work on polearms only too, which is going to be wild if so. Like, if you want like proof of why I think Arlecchino is going to be better, like quite good. I think even with her damage values being changed significantly, I think she's going to replace Hu Tao in many of the contexts I normally use Hu Tao in on poems only. And that's insane because Hu Tao is an insanely useful and strong character for poems only. I'm not 100% confident of that, but I am relatively confident. So, we'll see. Let me remove the turtle. Where's the thing? There it is. Blam. Let me get a drink of water quick. They change their burst to absorb blood directives like her charge attack, but it absorbs first then heals second, which causes issues. Oh, okay. That's interesting. No, I didn't hear about that. I'd assume they probably will fix it. If that doesn't really make sense, yeah. If it absorbs directive and then heals, because that obviously clears the thing it absorbed. So yeah. If it is intentional, it's very weird. Like, I don't get why that would be the case. So, anywho's, the thing with Virgin Arlecchino, right? Yes, Virgin Arlecchino and poems only would be with Yaoyao and Candace. Because remember, Candace can't allow Hu Tao to vape. And like, it doesn't work with Hu Tao. Hu Tao applies too much pyro. Arlecchino, by nature, applying less pyro means she might allow Candace and Yaoyao to work together, and by nature being flexible, being swapped out too. She might apply less element, like pyro element, that Virgin might even work on poems only. I'm very iffy on that though, because the Candace and Yaoyao combo, generally speaking, really wants Yaoyao to be on-field, and therefore any on-fielder doesn't necessarily work that well as an idea, but we'll see. But in general, on a normal account, outside of the contest of poems only, a big part of the reason I am bullish on Virgin Arlecchino is Virgin causes self-damage, and Arlecchino has a self-healing kit. So, you can see this in my Kokomi video, by the way. Like, I made a crit Kokomi video with Marshal Hunters using Virgin before Farina existed, right? I used Marshal Hunters on Kokomi before Farina existed, using the self-damage for Virgin. Arlecchino is going to be the same thing, wherein she's going to be a tanky unit that also has the ability to heal herself from the damage she takes, and she is going to be able to take a bunch of instances of small damage from Virgin cores being popped, which is going to trigger the 4-piece passive of Marshal Hunters without Farina. You can probably use Farina, to be clear, with her. She doesn't really have that much anti-synergy with Farina right now. Her values could be changed and she could suddenly have anti-synergy with Farina. And ultimately, right, my point is, you could do something like using artifacts like this one, using an EM timepiece, using a pyro goblet, and whatever crit circlet. And on a Burgeon situation, she will enable herself to use this 4-piece passive. She even gets significant value from the normal charge attack bonus. And yeah, then she gets 36% free crit rate. And anytime you can use this set, it's basically the character's best option. So in the case of Burgeon, if it's going to work as well as I think it is, and based on my experience playing Burgeon, I'm pretty sure it is, then she can use Marsh's Hunters, and that's going to be her best artifact set. It's not even going to be like close. Most likely. I shouldn't say close. To be clear, if you farm a ton of her signature artifact set, the big advantage of her artifact set, by the way, which is her artifact set can basically boil down, the 2-piece gives attack, and the 4-piece gives 54% damage bonus to all of Arlecchino's damage bonus, and the 4-piece basically says that the artifact set is only for Arlecchino, at least right now. It's possible they could introduce the mechanic on other characters that's useful on, but right now, I suspect it's only going to be Arlecchino for a long time, if not ever. And yeah, that basically means 54% damage bonus to Arlecchino all the time. And that's good. And like her artifact set is very good for her. Duh. And it's still potentially valuable to go for universality. Because, if you're not playing her with Burgeon or not playing her with Farina, you don't want to use Marsh's Hunters, right? But I am quite bullish that, your existing Marsh's Hunters artifacts in a Burgeon context is going to be very, very strong on Arlecchino. So, take that for what you will. She's also the best character that will probably ever be released to use 4-piece gladiators. Like 4-piece gladiators, I don't have many on poems only because I don't farm that many bosses. 4-piece gladiators passive, right, is 35% normal attack bonus if they're a sword, claymore, polearm user, and 2-piece attack. It's not that much worse than her signature artifacts. It's worse, to be clear. But is it worse enough on a level that if you have played the game for long enough where you have just fought a ton of bosses in the process of leveling up characters, or Strongbox for Gladiator in the past, when Strongbox used to be garbage and only have like Gladiators and Noblesse in the Strongbox, and Wander's Troop. And remember that time if you played 2 years ago. You might have a lot of Gladiators, right? Like my main account has a decent amount of Gladiators. You might have such a good Gladiators 4-piece set available for Arlecchino that it's basically not worth farming her 4-piece set, especially because the Burning set right now basically doesn't make that much sense. The Burning set basically gives damage bonus to the character that has it equipped when there is a burning reaction going on, and it doesn't give enough damage bonus to basically be worthwhile, essentially. And I really don't get what they're doing with it, because burning is a reaction that makes much more sense, like it's a transformative reaction. I don't get why it's not an EM set. The burning set should have been there was a rumor that the burning set was going to buff team EM, and I was like, holy crap, the burning set might be 5-star instructors. And then they made another boring damage percent set that is just as niche as heck and not worth farming for. So it's 2-piece attack at least, so it's not like the worst. Like Arlecchino's Domain can give you 2-piece combos, and Arlecchino's the same situation as any character, where like you might have such good flexible options for 2-piece combos: 2-piece pyro, 2-piece attack, 2-piece normal charge attack bonus, Marsh's Hunters, right? 2-piece Marshal says. You might have such good options for 2-piece combos that it's not worth the resin farming for a 4-piece combo. Like the difference might be, okay, it's 10% better, but that means if you had equivalent stats on your 2-piece combos compared to what a 4-piece combo and Arlecchino's signature artifacts could give you, and let's say it's 15% better. I don't know exactly because it would depend on the exact artifacts, but let's say stat for stat, Arlecchino's signature artifacts are 15, heck, let's just say 20% better. That's a lot. That's quite a lot better. Enough better that it might be worth farming for. But if you can clear the content anyways with 2-piece combos, you can still see big numbers with your 2-piece combos. And your 2-piece combos is like a mix of, insane artifacts that, are 35 CV plus another stat, this kind of artifact, right? And you can enable yourself to have extraordinarily high stat value on slightly worse set combos, it means that the equivalent signature artifacts, right, her artifacts that are releasing in next patch with her, you'd have to get, say if you have a 40 CV piece on, just as an example, if you have like a 40 CV piece on every single, no, this is not usually the case, I'm simplifying, right? You have a 40 CV piece on every single piece in your Arlecchino with 2-piece combos because you played the game for 2 years and you have a lot of options for 2-piece combos. It's actually not that unlikely of a case. I know that might seem insane to someone that's a newer player, but if you played the game for a year and a half, like, it's not that weird to have that many options for 2-piece combos for a character like Arlecchino, at least, because she has so many 2-piece options. And the end result is basically that you would probably need, if you have a 40 CV 2-piece combos, you'd probably need towards 30 crit value or higher on every single piece from her new artifacts. Even if they were like 20% better, you'd probably need at least 30 CV on every single piece. And farming a full 4-set bonus of a new artifact domain from a resin inefficient domain that is 30 CV or higher, and CV is not the exact way to do this, by the way. I'm simplifying. You should do it by stat value, not by crit value, or roll value if you are used to roll value percentages on Akasha or whatever. And all in all, it's like, yes, her signature artifacts are going to be the most universal. They're going to be the most, the best for the most situations compared to other artifacts. But whether or not they're actually worth farming for is really, really dependent on your account. And she has so many flexible options for 2-piece combos that I think for most players it's not worth doing. On my main account, I'm most likely not farming her new artifacts. Marsha's Hunter is too valuable of a domain to me, and there's still artifacts I want from that domain. And heck, 4-piece Crimson I even have good options for, because I farmed a ton of 4-piece Crimson on my main account, and 4-piece Crimson is a decently universal option on Arlecchino, right? So like 4-piece, and notably, like, Arlecchino actually uses multiple skills per rotation now, and that means she can trigger the 4-piece bonus of Crimson twice. So yeah, she gets increased overload burning burgeon damage and increases vaporized melt damage by 15%, and then using the 2-piece set using the skill increases the 2-piece set by 50%. So, which can max 3 stacks. Arlecchino will get it to 2 stacks. And yeah, that means you'll get like 30% pyro bonus, the 40% increase in transformer reaction damage, and the 15% increase in vaporized melt. Like Crimson's going to be potential competent 2-piece and 4-piece option on her too. Like, she has a lot of options, right? Such that a lot of players, if you're not a new player, I don't think it's really worth farming her new artifacts. It's kind of all it comes down to. And if you are a new player, it might be worth farming her new artifacts, because it's much less likely you have Gladiator options. It's much less likely you even have like Shimenawa's options. I mean, mostly 2-piece Shimenawas I'm talking about. There is some potential shenanigans with 4-piece Shimenawas, but the way her rotations work makes it so that Shimenawa's uptime is probably pretty low on her, and therefore likely not worth doing. Marshal's Hunters is obviously a consideration if you're doing Burgeon shenanigans, so I don't know. I wouldn't pre-farm any artifacts. I wouldn't be dumping all your artifacts into Strongbox right now for Gladiator or anything. In preparation for Arlecchino, just hold on to your stuff, and let's wait a little bit to see what her actual kit numbers end up looking like on release, and decide then. But like, if you want to farm anything now, I don't know, farm Marsha's Ace, because it still might be one of her best set in some of her strongest teams. That's my bullish example. 4 to 5 crit rolls difference is a lot. You should farm new set. I was just throwing out. I was throwing out 20% as a number that I don't even necessarily think like her artifact set shouldn't be 20% better than like Gladiators. I'm pretty sure like, because versus Gladiators, right? The vast majority of Arlecchino's damage right now, the vast majority of Arlecchino's damage comes from her normal attacks. So the normal attack bonus is the most important thing with Gladiators, right? So her signature set gives 19% more bonus for normal attacks than Gladiators. That's not 90% more damage, though. That's 19% more normal attack bonus. That doesn't translate to a 20% DPS upgrade to Arlecchino over Gladiators. And ultimately, like, I think 10 to 15% is more realistic at best. When you like factor in the value of the damage percent bonus for her burst, and like, I don't know, like, it's right on that line that signature artifact sets are always, generally speaking, on when they make an artifact set made for one specific frickin' character. They're right in that line where it's basically not worth it unless you just really love the character. That's my general gist. You really like Arlecchino and you want the best artifacts that you can just put a build on her, and it's going to be good enough, even if it's worse than Marsh's Seance. Even her first signature artifacts are worse than Marsh's Seander's in certain situations. It's going to be good enough that like you won't need to change that, and that's of really significant value. Not having to ever change a build is of significant value, right? So, you know, you get the point. I'm not saying our signature artifacts are bad, but the more invested you get in an account, the less worth it is to farm for niche artifacts. Is the generalization, I would say. So, and no, her set is her 4-piece set is useless on anyone else. It's 2-piece attack percent, so her 2-piece bonus is not useless. So it's kind of like Xiao's domain, where Vermilion and Echoes of the Offering are both niche sets, but the 2-piece combos are potentially useful. So, you know, it can be worth it, maybe. I'll just steal my Xiao's 2-piece because you never use them anyways. Yeah, assuming one of those 2 pieces is not animo damage, then yes, that makes sense. I think most people, again, her damage numbers might change a little bit, but I think most people are going to be more than happy with Arlecchino on a 2-piece build. But, you know, if I hate this dude. Dude's wooden shield blocks gunshots. I mean, it's more sensible, I think, than them blocking Raiden's giant mountain-cleaving sword. Anyways, artifacts-wise, she has a lot of options. That's all it comes down to. And you should just consider whether or not it's really worth farming for you. But if you really like the character, you know, she's a character that's versatile that I think is going to get a lot of teams that she's going to feel nice in, and that's ultimately going to result in it potentially being more valuable to farm her signature artifacts for the purpose of having more teams to use her in. If I ever get a couple specific artifacts from the Marchese's domain that I'm looking for on my main account, I might consider farming it on my main account, just because, again, like, I might end up enjoying the character enough that it feels like it's worthwhile for me. But I suspect I won't. Unless I can think of a use case for the 4-piece burning set being interesting. Which, I suspect the burning set exists for a future character, by the way. It smells of that to me. Or maybe not, I don't know. What would be our alternate best in slot weapon other than her signature? I mean, for Burgeon or Arlecchino, if you do a goofy hybrid playstyle, you know, use it. If you do goofy hybrid playstyle, again, I'm pretty bullish on Burgeon, but like, if you use weird arse artifacts like this and then do like an EM goblet with crit on it, right? I don't know why I clicked down there. An EM goblet with crit on it, and you know, use Staff of Scarlet Sands. But anyways, I imagine you were asking for non-5-star options. I don't know. I don't know. Her signature, they keep on tweaking values, so answering how much better her signature is hard to say. Her signature is basically Jade Spear, by the way, but it gives her more of the resource that she needs to be able to have longer infusion uptime. I'm a little bit worried right now. It's going to feel like she wants her signature to feel really good. But honestly, I think there's value to not having her signature in the fact that even if her signature like makes her be able to stay on field longer, right? There is value to a short, like take this team for example. The value to having a shorter DPS window time is that you have more flexibility for doing things like Raiden and Arlecchino together. So you could do, like this team I'm doing, do Raiden, Xiangling, Chevreuse, and Arlecchino. That's a polearm melee team. I'm definitely going to test it. It's probably a team I will actually use Arlecchino a lot in. And by the way, Arlecchino generates right now. Arlecchino generates a whack ton of pyro particles, Xiangling can run very, very little ER on a team like this with Arlecchino. So, anyways, having a shorter DPS field time, like having more, like, just, you spend 8 seconds outputting, or 10 seconds, let's say, outputting Arlecchino's damage without her signature weapon, and then swap to Raiden, do Raiden's damage in this team. That's something that will be an advantage of having shorter field time. Like, it's not as simple as, oh, her signature gives her Bond of Light, which lets her have more infusion uptime with such units, gets more damage out, which is a big damage upgrade. Like, it's not as simple as, oh, it's objectively better, because it's not always objectively better to spend longer time on field. The intention for it is to let you get more damage by spending longer time on field, but it's not. It's just like situationally, depending on like the team context and situation context, because so many enemy contexts they're releasing nowadays like want you to do a bunch of damage in like short windows versus like longer sustained windows. Therefore, like the value of a weapon that gives you a longer sustained window isn't as valuable in certain contexts. So like it depends. As far as her options for like the weapons outside of her signature, there's a lot of DPS polearms, and with how I'm talking about how I think she's going to be very versatile in a lot of teams, I think there's a lot of variations where she will be more than comfortable with a lot of other weapons. Homo will be fine. Obviously, Jade Spear is going to be quite good on her, actually, like really good on her. She's probably going to be one of the better Jade Spear users, which is nice. So if you have a Jade Spear, that's probably what I would lean to. The only downside is I think they very purposely, made her signature weapon have the same base stats as Jade Spear, but obviously looks a lot better on her, because I don't know what could look uglier in Arlecchino than a green glowing weapon. But anyways, literally any other weapon in the game looks better than Jade Spear. It's fine. Homa is obviously, it's Homa, it's good. Missive Wind Spear is an interesting option, particularly for that Virgin playstyle. Attack percent is the weird indirect benefit of making her a little bit more tanky. In a way that's probably not that relevant, to be clear. I wouldn't over prioritize attack percent as a main stat on a weapon just because of it, but this weapon gives you a bunch of attack percent and gives you CEM, so, in the context of doing Virgin, like, hey, maybe. Dragon's Bane, similar story, right? If you're playing her in a context where the enemy is at least always having Hydro or Pyro Aura on them, and, the EM might not be useless, especially in the Virgin context. So, like, it's not obvious. I'm talking about the Virgin context a lot because she has more options in the Virgin context. Outside of the Virgin context, if you want a without that, Deathmatch is going to be a very good option. It's going to make her more tanky. The defense is not useless when there's more than 2 opponents, or give her a bunch of attack percent, which is nice. As far as, this weapon will be fine, but it'd have to be in specifically a 3-element team, which is a bit awkward. So I don't really like this necessarily on her that much versus Deathmatch. The Fab is going to be not that great on her because right now she has basically no energy needs other than for Vape. When you play her in Vape, she has a little bit of ER she wants, and I guess actually Fab is not necessarily a terrible option in that case because it would fulfill basically all the energy needs. So yeah, as far as if you don't have this event weapon, if you started playing more recently, and you don't plan to like buy a single battle pass or buy a battle pass for getting deathmatch or anything, and you don't plan to play her in Virgin or don't have Dragon's Bane, then realistically your options go down to Blacklift Pole essentially, which will be fine. It's not going to be amazing, but it might be one of the more okay options. What is the other craftable polearms? I don't remember what the Fontaine one is not good on her because it's basically the new event weapon, but worse. Actually, no. Technically, for Arlecchino, the new event weapon would be worse than Arlecchino than the Fontaine craftable weapon. But the Fontaine craftable polearm is still, I don't even have it in here. It's still garbage for Arlecchino. Alright, this one gives EM. Okay, again, it's just basically no. Not that this is bad necessarily, but I'd rather use Dragon's Bane. So yeah, I don't know. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of good polearm craftable options. So I don't actually need to claim those. So realistically, Blacklift Pole is the generic option if you don't have anything else. But there's so many DPS Polearm options, and she has other... I honestly would consider, even more, like, consider playing Virgin Arlecchino if you're in a situation where you don't have Jade Spear, you know, don't want to buy a battle pass for deathmatch. Yeah. So, Dragon's Bane. Because, yeah, Dragon's Bane with Virgin is probably going to be pretty good. I'm gonna actually I should jot a note down and level D-Bane on main account for Arlecchino, so I can properly like test the difference between like that for Virgin Arlecchino and something like, you know, obviously Staff of Scarlet Sands would be the highest, or something like Jade Spear or whatever else, but yeah. Skyward Spine, again, she doesn't really need the ER that often, but in vape contexts, which aren't right now, again, her damage values are getting changed a little bit, so it can change. In the vape context, Skyward Spine, that is the main case where she wants some ER. I don't think you can actually view the weapon information here, can you? Skyward Spine gives, I think, 36% ER and has 674 base attack, and then gives a little bit of crit rate in its passive. So it's not useless as a stat stick, basically, but you're really not necessarily gaining value. Yeah, I don't think you can. Okay. You're not necessarily gaining value, right, from the ER in a lot of team contexts with her, as she currently is. They could give her particle ICD, and then, wow, wham blam, suddenly ER becomes a lot more valuable on her, and then something like Skyward Spine becomes more valuable. In her original like beta version, she had a lot more energy needs in a lot of team contexts, and for that reason, Skyward Spine used to be a much better option in more teams, but yeah. I'm very confused with what the purpose of her flight is. It's far too short to be useful in exploration. I agree, Warp. I agree. I don't... It feels like visual fluff that does nothing, basically nothing functional. I don't get it. And it makes me sad, because I was so excited for a second that I was finally going to get a nice, like, not insane, but nice overworld exploration ability on polearms only. And nope, Hoyo's like, F you, polearm characters, you don't get to have good movement ability. She only lasts 2-3 seconds. I think 3 seconds technically. So like with the wind-up time of doing her wing movement stuff, she won't even be able to cross this body of water, right? Like, it's so dumb to artificially limit it to 3 seconds. I don't get it. Anywho, is Deathmatch more worth it to compare to Fjord when considering usability on other units? I mean, so Fjord, right, gives 120 EM at R1. It has a little bit higher base attack, but doesn't give any attack percent, right? So, like, as far as like the attack value goes, what does the functional attack value turn out to be? Well, let's do some math here, real quick. Calculator. I don't remember what Arlecchino's base attack is. I'm just gonna say I think it's like 350. I'm just gonna say 350 for simplicity. So if we're doing deathmatch, 350 plus 450. Let's assume single target situation for the attack increase. So deathmatch. Actually, well, no. Let's assume 2 targets. Let's assume the worst case scenario. First for deathmatch. So at R1, deathmatch is 16% attack, right? So with 800 base attack times 0.16, that is 128. So plus 800. All right, so that functionally makes it 928 attack at minimum. So compared to Fjords with which is 510, 510 plus 350, which is a little bit higher base attack, that puts her at 860. So just like the weapon is ignoring any like substats or whatever from artifacts, just the values of the weapon alone. An R1 deathmatch gives Arlecchino a higher amount of attack than Fjords does, despite the fact that it has a lower base attack, right? And that's because it just gives a bunch of attack percent, and then if you if you're in the single target situation, you get even more attack for Arlecchino, which makes it even better attack wise. And Arlecchino really likes a lot of attack, is the reason I'm focusing on that. Whereas EM is really only situationally going to be useful because she's not like Hu Tao where she's going to be triggering a reaction every single time she attacks. A large portion of Arlecchino's damage output is going to be, again, almost barring major changes, which I don't suspect this kind of change will happen. Fjords is just going to be situationally useful. The main context I can see it being potentially better than like Deathmatch in is in the Burgeon context, wherein that EM might be so valuable for not only her occasionally triggering vapes, but increasing her overall Burgeon damage output, while still enabling her to crit pretty consistently, right? By nature of having crit rate substat. But yeah, so higher crit rate substat gives more attack than Fjords. Deathmatch is just more universal, I'd say, than Fjords. Fjords might be situationally better, but it's really only going to be specific situations. Like in Burgeon, it might be better, but I'm not even that confident it's going to be that much better. Like R1 versus R1, the value of this attack, I think, is and the higher amount of crit. Like the crit is a big difference too. Like having 10% more crit rate, that's 3 crit rolls, right? That's 3 crit rate rolls. That's a lot. It's not nothing at the very least. She ascends with crit damage, by the way, so you're gonna want a healthy amount of crit rate. And it's very possible, depending on your artifacts, that having this much crit rate versus this much crit rate might be the difference in making a crit damage circlet worthwhile or not, and that could be a very big difference maker between these two weapons as well. So my vote would be Deathmatch. Also, it looks better on her. The only downside is it has the ugly arse animation thing that happens all the time, but yeah, I used to complain about that a lot early on. I've gotten over it. So it's red and white though, and has black accents, and Arlecchino's red and white with black accents, so you know, she has split scalar. Oh yeah, white tassel, almost forgot about that. Derp. Oh, thank you. I almost forgot about white tassel. So yeah, white tassel, she's a normal attack focused damage dealer. The big asterisk on white tassel is like the low base attack on this weapon is gonna hurt if you don't play with Bennett. So that's a pretty big downside in my opinion. I don't like being forced to use Bennett personally, and you know, as far as relying on Bennett for his attack buff, it's no fun to me. She's not going to be bad with Bennett, to be clear. She's going to be a good unit with Bennett. She likes attack. And when you're giving her a bunch of attack from Bennett and, you know, external attack buffs, although external attack buffs will do some value with White Tassel, you know, this should be a very, very good option, actually. But without Bennett, it becomes a pretty poor option, is what I would say. No, she's not a split scaler. She completely scales her damage on attack. How much worse is R1 Deathmatch compared to R1 Jade Spear? I couldn't tell you. I especially with the fact that her damage, like exactly how her damage values work is being changed. It's currently rumored her multipliers are going to be changed. Her multipliers are like, right, the character's multipliers are their base thing, right? This base percentage is what is used to multiply based on the character's attack stat to be able to calculate the damage they deal. And then it's multiplied by damage bonus and like crit and then enemy defense, any EM scaling if you trigger a reaction, blah 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 blah. So point being, as far as Deathmatch versus Jade Spear, I wouldn't pull Jade Spear specifically for it versus Deathmatch. Since you're saying you don't have either, I would lean towards Deathmatch. Jade Spear is going to probably be better though. Right, the Jade Spear has a much higher base attack than Deathmatch, less crit rate, which is a bit rough, but I think the value of the fact that Jade Spear gives a whole bunch of attack percent in its passive, and has a high base attack, makes the weapon a very competitive option for Arlecchino. And then the damage percent bonus is also easy to get to max stacks on Arlecchino as well. So ultimately, it is going to be a very competitive option for her, and one of her best options that I think a lot of people are going to use as far as like the stat value it gives. And Deathmatch is just the better drip option. Realistically. At R5 versus like an R1, like this is maybe a more interesting comparison because like if we compare, like let's do the math I just did with Fjords, right? Where's my calculator? Where'd my calculator go? There it is. All right, let's compare the math. So we're gonna do R5 versus just for funsies because I think R5 as far as the attack percent value. Wait, how much does Jade Spear give? We'll just do deathmatch first. Okay, so let's assume 48% attack. So assume single target situations. 48% attack. So 800 base attack times 0.48. That's an additional 384. So plus 800. That's 1184 at a baseline. That's what we're comparing to. Jade Spear at R1. 3.2 times 7. That's 22.4 attack. So 0.224 times. Oh wait, I forgot to do so. 674 plus 350 base attack from Arlecchino. That's 1,000 base attack plus. Oh wait, no, not plus. 1,024 times 0.224. Whoops, I almost did 2,000 times 0.224. 124 times 0.224 is 1,253. Which is to say that Jade Spear, without even factoring the damage bonus, and this is assuming, like, this is being generous at deathmatch, assuming a single target situation, which is obviously not always the case. Jade Spear gives more attack. Jade Spear gives 1,250 attack at a baseline with max attack passive going. Jade, it takes longer to build up, so that is technically a downside. But in practice, it's not that much of a downside in my opinion. And compared to 1184, right? So 70 more attack. It's not like that's insane. But point is, even Jade Spear at R1 gives more attack than an R5 deathmatch does. Is what it comes down to. And Jade Spear will give further compounding additional value the more attack percent you have in like your artifact stats, or the more attack percent you have in external buffs from like Noblesse or whatever, right? Noblesse, tenacity, etc. And then it also has that damage percent passive. Deathmatches have the defensive utility, which is potentially not irrelevant, and then the crit value. Like it has 14% more crit rate. That is actually really significant. And that 14% crit rate, depending on the artifacts you have available, may very well outweigh the value of your more attack percent, right? So it's going to be close enough that I'd say deathmatch is very competent. Is all I can say. That crit value is very nice. Did they majorly F up Arlecchino in any way? No. Not that I've heard of, at least. I actually haven't checked the leaks today. I don't know. At this point, it's just like, I don't know why even, like, she's had so many changes that whatever changes she gets next week, like, unless, if she does, so this week she has some rumor changes, right, that we'll find out tomorrow or Monday. If we jump forward to a week from now, we should hear about if she's going to have any more changes, and I think, not the Monday after the following, the Monday after this coming Monday should be the last Veda changes, I think. But if she gets changes in the very last beta, even I'm not even confident her release version is going to have 0 changes from the beta, right? So that's why I'm not like, I'm trying not to give any specific numbers other than numbers I'm just pulling out of my butt, or numbers that I'm pretty confident they're not going to change. Like, I doubt they're going to meaningfully change her base attack, so we can evaluate the difference in the values of the attack from Jade Spear versus Deathmatch. So Jade Spear gives more attack but less crit value, and the crit value should not be underestimated. Like, especially like, look at your artifacts, because one interesting effect is like, yeah, Jade Spear could theoretically be better with ideal artifact stat distribution, right? But again, if the amount of crit rate that Deathmatch gives, it gives 14% more. It's quite likely that it's possible Deathmatch enables you to easily, have a balanced stat spread on your artifacts that enables a crit damage circlet. Whereas Jade Spear, I've had situations where, like, is my Sino even on? Let's see, Sino might be an example. Sino, no, I think he is on a crit damage circlet, but like, this is a pretty invested account. Actually, no, this is actually an example of, I think Sino does have a problem with the fact that I don't have enough ER on him, but anywho's, right, ignoring the ER issue, Sino has 76% crit rate, 183 crit damage on Jade Spear, and if I switch to Deathmatch, obviously his attack drops a lot. The Deathmatch passive doesn't reflect in the stat screen here if he's not active on field. It goes at a 90% crit rate, right? This is a way better balanced crit ratio, right? And therefore, like, it enables me, and being that my Sino has a problem of not having enough ER, this enables me even more flexibility for doing something like this, right? And now my Sino probably doesn't have problems with ER, but he still has a very healthy crit ratio. If I do that on Jade Spear, his crit ratio starts looking a bit sad, right? Like, this starts to be a bit of a crit ratio. Like, it's very possible, depending on your artifacts, you might even still have to run a crit rate circlet, even with a crit rate weapon, because of the fact that Jade Spear only gives 22% crit rate. So, depending on your artifacts, the value of the higher amount of crit rate from Deathmatch versus Jade Spear might be the differentiator, more than anything, other than drip. Why don't I refine the Jade Spear? Because when I got it, I was like, okay, there's a chance. This is a polearm only account, right? So like, I'm actually gonna have an account tour video releasing tomorrow for polearms only. And one thing I mentioned in that video is how one of the biggest problems that is not super obvious when you start an account like this is you're using only polearm characters. You need a lot of polearms to equip them with. And this account is far enough along, and I've gotten lucky enough with 5-star weapons that I have a lot of options. But if you look at like Kekvin's account, he has a really significant problem of not having that many options for weapons to equip on his characters. And so if you're doing like a one weapon type only series, something like the weapon banner starts to become a lot more valuable by just giving your characters more weapon options, because all your freaking characters need the same weapon type, and that makes yeah. So you get the point. The reason I left it on refined was because, like, when I got it, I was just like, okay, I might end up needing this again, for you know, another unit released in the future. But at this point, I am relatively confident that I will not need it, so I will probably refine it. But I'm still not 100% sure. It's still possible they release someone. Like, the current circumstances, like, you know, I could imagine wanting a Jade Spear on Hoyoverse because I want Homa on Hu Tao, I want Homa on Arlecchino, let's say. So I give Jade Spear to Hoyoverse, and then switch to but like I don't know. I'm trying to. There's not many condos where I can imagine needing 3 Jade Spears realistically. So I think I'm already just failing to come up with an example there. Especially because I hope to get Arlecchino's weapon on this account. Because again, having more options would be good. If I get Arlecchino's weapon, I think I will actually refine this for sure. I'll refine it into this one, and that will make it a little bit better weapon for Sino. But anyways. I guess I'm not C16 Shenhe, so I just need to make it past Arlecchino. She's the last unit I want, but I can't lose a guarantee unless Clorin's button comes off. I don't want her. Yeah. Yeah, who knows when Shenhe's coming back. If Shenhe runs with... I'm planning on getting Shenhe on my main account because I need her for videos. Although, based on what I said earlier in the stream, maybe not. If I change the way I make content. I'll still probably get her anyways, because I want to try DPS Charlotte again, and I think Shenhe will be the difference maker for DPS Charlotte feeling not garbage. I think it's probably going to be pretty... It's going to probably be competent and pretty fun to play DPS Charlotte with Shenhe, is what I got planned. It's basically just going to be the same as what I did originally with DPS Charlotte, but replacing Shenhe in my original DPS Charlotte video, replacing Yunjin with Shenhe in my original DPS Charlotte video, which should enable Charlotte to get her burst back every rotation, which means Charlotte, when built on a damage build, can still be enough healing for Farina to get like max damage bonus for the team. And then that means I don't need to use Jean for an Animo healer, right? Because I can burst every rotation. And then that means I can use Kazuha. So I can do something like Kazuha, Farina, Charlotte Amarantha's, and Shinha, and do a free Charlotte that way. And I think it'll be pretty good. It's not necessarily going to be amazing, but it's also going to open up flexibility for even doing like Melt Charlotte too, because now I can put in a Pyro unit, like, well, basically Xiangling, because she's the only off-field frickin' Pyro in the game. So put in Xiangling instead, and then hey, now I can do Melt Charlotte things, and that seems pretty cool. So yeah, Shenhe's going to open up a lot of options to make, I think, DPS Charlotte a lot more competent, and I really like Charlotte's normal attack animations, so that's the only freaking reason I want it. Anywho's dumb reason to get a 5-star character, but also for me, it's the best reason to get a 5-star character. To DPS a character that's really, really bad at being a DPS. Charlotte is genuinely one of the worst case scenarios and the hardest characters to try to do competent damage with, but you can still do it. Yeah. Did I use my resonance count? I did not. Okay. It's Saturday, isn't it? I have been pre-farming for Arlecchino, as you can see. She uses the same thing as Hoyoverse's materials. And I believe I have enough to... So, Arlecchino is a new weekly boss, right? For her weekly drop, so... If you get lucky and get 3 drops, you will... Or, no. Is it even... No, I think it's only going to be possible in the first week to get her to 866, right? But anyway, it might be possible to get 4 drops, I'm not sure. Is it? I don't know if I've ever even seen 4 weekly boss drops from one boss when farming, but if it is possible to get 4, you could get really lucky and get her to like 966 in the first week. So I have more than enough materials basically already. I think this is probably the last time I'm gonna farm this domain before Arlecchino's release, because like, why even bother farming anymore? I'll probably end up triple crowning her on this account, but we'll see. Plunge Melt Charlotte is pretty fun. My only problem with Plunge Melt Charlotte is like, Plunge Charlotte is by far probably the easiest way to make Charlotte good. My problem with that is relatively simple. Is the number one thing I like about Charlotte is seeing her normal attack animations. I'm a hobbyist photographer myself, and it tickles my brain in the right way to have a character that's doing, photography to kill enemies. And therefore, Plunge, the biggest downside of Plunge is that it, doesn't let me see the animations. So, no. Basically. I want to see Charlotte's normal attack animations, therefore plunging is not an option. So it's more than competent, to be clear, to getting Charlotte to deal damage. It's just not an option to get her to do normal attack damage. Shenhe also has the benefit of making her burst do potentially meaningful damage too, which is cool. So it should be a lot better than I tried it before, than what I tried before. I have enough energy and I don't feel like wasting my 60,000 damage on it. This build is disgusting. Good lord. 60,000 damage on an enemy there from a non-reacted charge attack on Hu Tao. This is very lucky. So, anyways, let me look over my Arlecchino notes. I think I mentioned, I think she's a jack of all trades. She might be a master of some. I'm really bullish on her Virgin playstyle. But I could be wrong. I'll test it out when I get her. Well, assuming they don't have major changes that make me hate her. I think she'll be very versatile because of her freedom of being able to be swapped out. So anytime you want to pair her with teammates that either want flexibility for field time or want to use multiple skills per rotation, which is quite a significant number of potential characters, both that exist now or in the future. It means she should have maintained versatility as time goes on. So yeah, I think she's going to be she's going to be easy for most players to feel like they get value out of. Wow, I got a gold every time so far. Arlecchino's going to be easy for people to feel like they get value out of her long term, because her versatility is going to mean you're just going to always have, like, even if they are a newer player, I think it's very likely you're going to have characters that work well with her. And if you're a longer term player, you will continue having characters that probably work well with her. That's the advantage of being a jack of all trades, a versatile pyro carry, right? She might not be the master of a lot of playstyles, but she can still have a lot of different playstyles where she will be good in. It's kind of just the state of pyro carries to an extent in general, but Arlecchino's specific nuances make her uniquely better, even than a lot of other pyro carries would be, right? So, wow, I got a gold every single time. What reality is this? So I've got functionally, now I have enough, I think, to do like 10, 7, 7 at this point. Actually, let's do some math. Let's not do some math, let's just convert them. I don't need to say more than, I only need 9 browns, 63 silvers, and then everything else can be golds. Let's see, I didn't mention this. For polearms only, well, actually, this is not even necessarily something specific to polearms only. So, Arlecchino does not apply that much pyro, right? She's not like Hu Tao, where she applies a ton of pyro. She's a normal attack focused DPS. She has flexibility with being swapped out. What more synergy with Candace could you ask for? To be clear, I think it's still going to be a case of, you know, Sumeru 4 stars wanting C6 to feel relevant. I think Candace, I again haven't mapped this out on like when the applications actually line up timing wise. I'm pretty sure C6 Candace is going to be a very competent teammate with Arlecchino. Remember, Candace can allow you controlled in her base kit. Candace applies Hydro in an AoE, and Arlecchino has some small but not irrelevant AoE as well. That makes it so that there's situations where Candace's AoE Hydro application is more relevant potentially than Xingqiu, right? Or Yelan, who is only single target application, other than like when they use their skills. So Candace has AoE Hydro application that can be controlled in nature of allowing her to be switched, right? She has 3 instances of Hydro application that happen when you switch your character, and this has no ICD. So you can have front-loaded Hydro application to control when you vape certain hits on Arlecchino, like if you want to make sure you vape a charge attack. Because you do have to do some charge attacks on Arlecchino to be able to keep up her bond of life. And or if you want to like vape her burst very on purpose. So she's got that, right? But then with her C6, she applies additional Hydro from doing normal attacks, right? Every 2.3 seconds. And in conjunction with the fact that she applies enough, right? She'll apply Hydro every 2.3 seconds with C6. She has the front-loaded Hydro that you can control when swapping out. Arlecchino keeps her infusion when being swapped out. That, again, part of this flexibility, right? You can swap her out, so she has control for Hydro application, AoE Hydro application, which is an advantage that is relevant to Arlecchino with her small but relevant AoE attacks, and is a normal attack DPS. Candace has normal attack buffing in her kit. Is it insane normal attack buffing? Not necessarily, but everything lines up is what my point is. Everything lines up, at least with C6 Candace. Candace is a pretty synergistic unit with Arlecchino. Just saying. So I'm not 100% sure of it, but I'm pretty sure C6 Candace will enable Arlecchino to vape consistently. And this is part of the reason I think like Virgin Arlecchino might function too. Although that I'm a little bit more iffy on, because when you throw Dendro into the equation, you know, now you're eating elemental aura from Dendro happening, and it might not balance out properly on this account. But yeah, I don't know. Like situationally, like this current Abyss cycle, where no, you know, there's the freaking 6 specters in like an AOE all grouped together at the start of the like chamber 2, or the armor boys. You could very easily have Candace be a better character for Arlecchino in this context, because Candace can apply AoE Hydro to everyone at once, and it's something you can control, not only the timing of, but by where your positioning is, because it's an AoE Hydro around your character, and you can use that to make sure it like applies Hydro on all of the Shadow Armor Husk things, or the Spectres by standing in the middle of them, and then you can start attacking with Arlecchino, and she should be able to trigger a reaction on like all of them at once. Whereas if you're using Xingqiu or Yelan, you'd only be getting a reaction on one of them. So, just saying, Candace synergy. Yeah. So, anyways, is anyone gonna mention that in their guides? Yeah, probably not, because everyone pretends Candace is a garbage character and has no utility. I maintain that Candace, that Mihoyo Candace by making her C6 not being her base kit, which is what they did for so many Sumeru 5-stars. I feel the same way about, is Kave on this count? Let's actually go over all the Sumeru 4-stars real quick. I honestly think Mihoyo effed a lot of Sumeru 4-stars. Yep. Effed because he's technically a Mondstadt character. Nobody's released during the Sumeru patches that counts as a Sumeru 4-star. Screwed over because he really wants C6 to truly feel relevant, and even then he's still clunky. But this character, I'll talk about this in my Kave video, but I personally think Kave would be, even without, I'm gonna be playing with him in a video. I can tell you it's gonna be successful. I play with it enough. It's gonna work. I quite like it. The idea for the video, by the way, is because nobody normally plays Kave as intended. Instead of like playing a character unconventionally, I'm playing Kave as intended. You saw a little bit of it earlier in the stream. Like, yes, it's plunge Kave, but I'm specifically structuring the team around trying to increase the bloom damage and using Kave's kit. Normally people, when they use Kave, they just use Kave because they like him and they just turn him into like a bad spread DPS. That's fine. It's a perfectly fine way and that you can get use out of him, to be clear. But because of the fact that no one actually plays with his intended like weird bloom core detonation playstyle, I think it's more interesting to actually spec into that build playstyle, and actually has advantages in like not having to level 90 him or whatever for how I'm playing it. And Cloud Retainer is the main piece of that equation that really helps balance out his damage output in conjunction with his weird bloom stuff, and it works better than you expect. But anyways, it still has problems though, and notably his C6 would fix those problems, because his C6 for normal, when he's doing normal and plunging attacks, normal charge or plunging attacks, he gets he triggers any dendrocores around him every 3 seconds, which, from what I've played him enough now that I can tell you it would balance out and make him feel a lot more consistent for how he was intended to be used. So got screwed over by his C6 not being his base kit. Mika, same thing. Yaoya, not the case. Although her Dendro application, I have noticed her Dendro application increase on poems only. Farazan, yeah. Layla, not really, but Layla's... Dori, not really. Candace, yes. So, you know, I guess we're 50-50. Kirara, I would say... no. I mean, Kirara does have an interesting C6. It's a team buff. A team elemental damage buff. It's a universal damage buff even, which is kind of cool. If you want to use her as a genetic shareholder, all nearby party members will gain 12% all elemental damage bonus after she uses a scale or burst. I don't know if that stacks, actually. I've never looked into that. If this stacks, that makes that even better, but that is not a difference maker for her kit, like, functioning like it feels like it should function. Kave's feels like he needs C6 to feel like he functions properly. C6 Candace feels like she needs it to make her kit make sense. Farazan is a ridiculously powerful character with her C6, and a whole lot, like, Farazan's just a weird case of, like, the difference between her C6 and non-C6 is ridiculous. But, yeah. And then Mika is the same case. So, you know, of the 8 Sumeru 4-stars, 4 of them 4 of them I personally feel really want their C6 to make their kit make sense. Not that you can't use them without their C6, but their design makes sense with C6. So, anywho's. Yes, that's why Freedom is using Freedom Sworn, because Freedom Sworn gives not only attack buff, but also a plunging bonus. And when you can utilize both buffs from Freedom Sworn, is very good. And so, yeah. And then, yeah, the gimmick with the Kaveh team is that not only am I, speccing Kaveh into trying to deal some damage, I'm speccing the team into using Kaveh as intended for his weird Bloom playstyle, and therefore, because of the fact that, I'm using Nahida and Kaveh together, who are both going to be applying a bunch of Dendro, then Farina is going to be the one triggering the blooms, and therefore Farina is the one that has to be built with EM, because her EM stat is the one that's going to be used for the calculation of the damage for the bloom cores being exploded, not Kaveh or Nahida, so most of the time. And anyways, so that's, yeah, I don't know, it's quite fun. I don't know, it's a very unconventional way to use Farina, and even though it's the intended playstyle for Kaveh, it's also technically an unconventional way to play Kaveh, because mostly people just play him as a spread DPS. But I'm doing non-spread, Kaveh, using plunging to even out his damage output, to be competent, to have good, decent damage output while plunging, while also then weaving in, anytime his skill is up, weaving in his skill, which is only like twice per rotation, or theoretically 3 times per rotation, to get some extra skills out, and yeah, or extra bloom damage. Is the bloom damage that significant in that team? No, and realistically, like I said, I think it needs C6 to feel properly good, but it works. So if you like Kaveh, it's a fun way to use Kaveh. My current running concept for the video, since Mihoyo seems to not want to rerun Kaveh, is like it's gonna be like, I built Hoyoverse's most hated character, or Hoyo banished this character to the Shadow Realm, so I decided to build him as intended to prove it wrong. Whatever, I don't know, something like that. I'll have to think of a better title idea soon, because that video's gonna come out next week. But does Hutao have Pyro Aura? What do you mean? I didn't mean to do that. Are you talking about when this goes? Because she has like glowy pyro effect when her skill goes. If you're talking about the little sparks, the sparks are from Chevrius. When you have her passive going from a pyro and electro team, she has those little sparks effects that happen across the team. So, anywho's, why did I talk about Candace for so long? Oh yeah, because of Candace synergy with Arlecchino. So, yeah, I really hope she works as well with Candace as I'm thinking, because I think it will be good. It will be fun for me to have more Candace propaganda at the very least. Title it Unreleased Hoyoverse Character. Yeah, maybe, yeah. Playing, I can't believe he's a 4-star. He hasn't rerun for over a freaking year, man. I think it'll be close to a year soon. It's ridiculous. Hoyoverse genuinely hates this character. Maybe that'll be the title. Hoyoverse hates this character. So I tried to prove them wrong. I don't know. This character deserves a rerun. So here's me using this character as Hoyoverse intended, with his Bloom playstyle, improving it can still work. So, anywho's, let's see. Any other notes? Oh, I didn't talk about her interruption resistance. I don't think her having interruption resistance is important. Quite frankly, I've said this I think before when I talked about Arlecchino a week or two ago. Interruption resistance is something, by the way, her C1 now has interruption resistance, which, whatever. I think it shouldn't, personally, but ultimately, I think it's fine being in a constellation, I guess. It's a fine thing to throw in as a value add for vertical investment, I guess. But what gives defensive units value, what gives the fact that characters like Xingqiu provide interruption resistance. That characters like Beidou can provide some interruption resistance. That shielders provide interruption resistance. What gives those characters defensive value is your on-field character not necessarily having a bunch of interruption resistance. Like Hu Tao does not have interruption resistance. That gives you more value to playing shielders with her. That's why a lot of people play shielders with her. On top of the fact that, you know, you want a protective unit to keep her alive, go figure. But you don't have to. And you can, there's people that play, you know, Farina Yelan, Jean together, right? And put Hu Tao on Marshall's Hunters like I do, but then, you know, just use Farina Yelan to apply Hydro and give some damage bonus to Hu Tao. And then Jean will not really be swirling Pyro, she'll be just increasing your Hydro unit's damage. And Hu Tao can give nice big vapes in that team. You lose the value of like Zhongli's interruption resistance, and that's fine. It's just a different playstyle. It's a way to balance out things. Like, if a character... so anyways, people... I'm mentioning it because like so much of the discussion I've seen about people like with mini on-field DPSs nowadays is like, I don't have interruption resistance. So... Use a character that gives them interruption resistance if that matters that much to you. That just is gonna have to guide your choices for how you play the character. On top of the fact that depending on the enemy situation, it might be more doable than I think a lot of people think to just look what the enemy is doing and dash at the right time and dodge the attack. You can do that with a lot of enemies in this game. Like I don't know. So, like, interruption resistance is valuable, but also every unit in the game should not just have infinite interruption resistance because there needs to be a lack of interruption resistance on fielders to give defensive units value. It's just a balancing thing, and for whatever strengths the character has, they need to have downsides. If Arlecchino is going to be a strong damage dealer, I don't think she needs all the defensive utility in the world. She already has a lot of defensive utility in her kit. She already has a defensive, like, passive that reduces the damage she takes. She already heals herself every rotation and offers you control over how much she heals every rotation, potentially, too. And, well, that might get changed, but it wouldn't surprise me if the healing value got changed because they've changed the healing value 3 times already. So, anyways, point is, she already has defensive utility. Why does she need all the defensive utility? So, like, yeah, I don't know. I just think people are not thinking about the fact that there's a give and take in how you design things. There's a risk and a reward. Raiden kind of needs her interruption resistance in her base kit because her damage output, quite frankly, is not good enough in her base kit, at least, to justify it. So, like, the more defensive utility has, I think, you know, the less damage they might deal. They should deal. And I don't know, a character should not have everything in their kit. It makes them more potentially boring and makes thinking about team options and the situations you use different teams with the character in less interesting. So, anywho's, I think it's perfectly fine on a balance level for them not to give interruption resistance to an on-field DPS, so long as they have upsides that outweigh it. There's situations like Yoimiya, you know, by nature of how her movement works and how much, you know, what am I looking on this account if I have Yoimiya? I don't have it on either account. But Yoimiya feels pretty rough to get interrupted because of how her attacks work and whatever. And how she wants to, whatever. It depends, right? Yoimiya does not have enough strengths, I think, to necessarily outweigh the fact that she doesn't have interruption resistance, and I think it could make more sense for Yoimiya to have interruption resistance as a thing to, again, like, give her something that, hey, this character is not as good as far as damage output goes, so here, have some extra, like, utility in not being interrupted so that you can play more offensive supports rather than feeling like you need to play a shielder, right? Yoimiya could really use that. Arlecchino is going to suffer less from that, in my opinion. And, like, Nuvilet needs it more and wants it more. I shouldn't say needs it. I still think Nuvilet doesn't even need it that much, because of how freaking strong he is. But it's a balancing thing with him too, right? But Nuvilet needs it more because his damage goes. I don't even know. I didn't even make a swear word there. I just went. His damage falls on the toilet if you don't get his charge attacks out, right? So like if you get interrupted right after like holding your charge attack to absorb his balls, and that feels real bad on Nuvilet because all his damage is kind of in what he do is in his charge attack. So yeah, it's real rough. You interrupt, if he's getting, let's say you're getting, 3 charge, you're not always getting 3 charge attacks per rotation, but let's say you're getting 3 full charge attacks per rotation on Nuvilet, you get interrupted out of one of them. You have you've potentially, lost 30 to 50% of your damage for that rotation. That's really bad. Arlecchino, you get interrupted. Oh no, you've lost a normal attack or 2. And it can be mitigated by the fact that you can dash to dodge. You cannot dash to dodge with Nuvilet because you can slowly strafe away with Nuvilet, but you can't. You can't dash out of it without canceling his charge attack. So like it's different cases, right? And it's just a balancing thing. There's my rambles for interruption resistance. And it's a constellation 1 if you feel like it's so ungodly important that like you need to be able to play Arlecchino without using a defensive unit, and you need that interruption resistance, and you don't want to get it from a shielder, you don't want to get it from Xingqiu or Beidou, well then okay, there's C1 for you as a reward. But I think it just would benefit you more if you tried to play a little bit differently and opened up your eyes to like the advantages and disadvantages of more defensive play versus more, offensive play, and play that potentially is just you paying attention more to what the enemy mechanics are. That's all. I think Arlecchino is going to be an overload unit. Is Arlecchino basically an AoE Yoimiya? I mean, AoE Yoimiya that has better damage output even in single target, I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong, but again, the range advantage is not insignificant. So, have you tried doing a quick restart of your graphics driver? I have an issue like yours due to my ultrawide not liking Windows 11. I'm not going to do the restart of my graphics driver right now, but I will try that. Thanks for the suggestion. I need to upgrade my graphics drivers anyways, so I also need to do that. But anyways, yeah, I agree. Nuvilet doesn't need anything. He's already so strong. Yeah, like Nuvilet is. I don't know if I'm actually gonna make this video. I might record a very quick video on Monday and upload it on Tuesday, basically saying how I think Nuvilet C1 and Kazuha C2 are very overrated. And Nuvilet C1 less so. Like if you played Nuvilet for 6 months and you're still getting a ton of value out of him, but you are sick of having to use, Dia with him, or Dia with him in Hyperblim, or for the interruption resistance, or Beidou, or whatever else for the or Zhongli for the interruption resistance, then okay, C1 might be worthwhile to you. But I absolutely agree. Nuvilet is so strong that he does not need interruption resistance. I think one of the really big things that balances his kit and makes him feel like an actually fairly balanced unit for how much his strengths that he offers is the fact that getting interrupted on him is so punishing. It means you either have to play defensive units that factor that in, which is potentially lowering team DPS in exchange for his strengths that he offers, or you pull soon, or you play better. And playing better usually involves like being smart with the range that you're firing at with your beam, right? And strafing smartly, but sometimes certain enemy situations still make that hard, right? But again, it's a balancing thing. It balances the strengths. So, anywho's, yeah, C1 gives him a stupid amount more damage and gives him the interruption resistance, which makes him a less. My basic argument that C1 Nuvilet is overrated is that like it makes him a boring character. Like I've gotten bored of Nuvilet already, and the only thing that makes him still sometimes engaging to play for me is the fact that Nuvilet can be interrupted. It makes him interesting because I have to like think about how I'm using him sometimes. It makes him less brain dead to play and less samey in any given situation. and I think that makes him a little bit more fun, personally. That's my core argument on why I think his C1 is overrated, in conjunction with the fact that you can get interruption resistance from things that are not his constellation. Yeah, the conjunction of giving a bunch of damage bonus, and the interruption resistance makes C1 Nubilet very strong, but also just makes him more boring and makes him too strong. So, even with newbie C1, I can still get knocked around if I'm not careful enough setting up, because you find yourself dodging regardless. Yeah, because that's because it doesn't really fix the main issue. Because the Nubilet C1, I think it only gives him interruption resistance while he's doing his charge attack, right? But the biggest problem actually happens with Nubilet being interrupted. Let's see. So I should mention that too. Thank you for reminding me. Because the biggest problem happens is not necessarily when getting interrupted. When you are doing, your interruption resistance is increased while using the charge attack. The biggest problem is not when you're using the charge attack sometimes, because you can move a little bit during that. But the biggest issue is like when you're doing the animation of trying to do his start the charge attack. When you're trying to absorb the balls and before the actual charge attack starts. If he gets interrupted during that, the balls get absorbed and you get no charge attack damage out and you get interrupted. And that can still happen with a C1. So it doesn't even fix the times where it causes the biggest problem, right? And therefore it's like, okay, what is even the point then sometimes? It's situational. Sometimes it still might be very useful. But again, I just think it makes him more boring to play. And then the fact that it makes it so his passive only requires, 2 Hydro reactions to get max damage bonus instead of 3. It makes him more boring again. Like this is a passive that incentivizes you to make more diverse teams as a balancing factor, right? Like it's a balancing factor to like, hey, double Hydro is strong because HP percentage, and he's an HP scaling character. But if you're doing double Hydro, you're losing the max damage bonus on his thing with C0. It's a balancing thing. I think he's a balanced character at C0 for his strengths and downsides. And C1 kind of breaks his balance, and it makes him more boring. And it's unnecessary, because he's so strong. It's not necessary to make the strong characters even stronger. So, anywho's. But if you want it, to be clear, if you want Nubilet C1, because you have enjoyed Nubilet a lot the last, like, if you got C0 Nubilet when his original banner ran, and you've enjoyed Nubilet a ton over the last few months, and you're not planning on getting Arlecchino, you're not planning on getting Clorin or Farina if you like on a rerun or whatever, you're not planning on getting any character for potentially months, you really like playing Nubilet, and you want to have more versatile, stronger team options with him because you just love him, don't let me stop you. It's something I absolutely do not want, because I think it would make him more boring. But if you really like him, it is one of the more valuable constellations as far as like vertical investment goes. So, don't let me stop you. C2 Kazuha or his weapon? Neither. I can tell you, I never use Freedom Sworn on Kazuha. So, yeah. Freedom Sworn, if you get it, I love Freedom Sworn as a Bennett weapon. I love Freedom Sworn in other niche use cases. You can see I've been using Freedom Sworn on Farina. It's a bit rough to use Freedom Sworn on Farina, to be clear. But if you're doing like Freedom's Cloud Retainer, where if you can take advantage of the plunging damage bonus, or it's also normal charge attack bonus and the attack bonus from Freedom Sworn, it's a pretty strong supportive weapon. And yeah, but I never use it on Kazuha, never. To be clear, that's because I have his real signature weapon, which is R5 Ziphos, because I spent a bunch of wishes when Ziphos originally ran on. It was one of the best weapon banners in the game. It was Nilu's weapon, Key of Cautious Suit, and then Jade Cutter. That was the last time Jade Cutter ran, by the way. Ridiculous. It's been like a year and a half since Jade Cutter was available in the game. So yeah, I wished a whole bunch in that banner because it was just like a good banner in general, and I got R5 Ziphos. But at this point, R5 Ziphos is a myth. Ziphos Moonlight at low refinement is not really that worthwhile on Kazuha, but at R5 is really good. So, anywho's. As far as C2 Kazuha goes, My general argument for C2 Kazuha being not worth... I don't even know my minute count, dang it. My general argument that... I'm basically just spoiling the freaking video for you guys. My general argument for C2 Kazuha is that the context in which C2 Kazuha's EM buff is really valuable are generally the contexts wherein Sucrose is very valuable instead of Kazuha. And oftentimes, because Sucrose gives a team-wide EM buff, the EM from Sucrose can make Sucrose, or relate the fact that like Global Swirl is a thing with Sucrose, makes Sucrose a better option or very competitive option as far as damage output goes. Not necessarily as like grouping comfort goes. That's always a big advantage of Kazuha. And basically, I originally thought that Kazuha C2 was a way. It was like, oh, it gives 200 EM bonus, right? That's a lot. That's basically like putting a fully built Sucrose into Kazuha's kit. That's absurd. Except again, why did the strong characters need to be even stronger? And then 2, there's a lot of specifics in the way that works that is relevant. 1, it's not a team-wide buff. It's only an on-field character, and it's also only a character that's standing in Kazuha's freaking circle. So, and on top of that, Kazuha's circle is one of the worst circle impact problems in the game, where like Kazuha's burst is really valuable, but you also situationally just don't use Kazuha's burst because of how long the animation is, and you want to spend, because the longer field time you're spending on Kazuha, the less field time you're spending on, you know, your on-field DPS unit doing damage with them, right? So a lot of times you just want to switch to Kazuha, use a skill, switch back to someone else, right? And you don't even use his burst, because like that might be more optimal for damage output. But his burst is still very valuable sometimes, and very, very often worth using. It just depends. And point is, there's teams where his burst isn't even worth using, and there's a lot of teams that barely care about the EM buff that he gives, even if you are using his burst. And to get the EM buff, you have to be standing in his circle. It only works for your on-fielders, so like I use Kazuha with Yai all the time. Kazuha C2 does very little for Yai. It increases Kazuha's own EM a little bit, so it gives a little bit of damage bonus, but like, so like, it's not like it's a bad constellation. It does a lot in the circumstances where you can use it, but the circumstances where you can use Kazuha C2 are actually relatively rare, and get value out of it. And therefore, for the fact that it, you know, takes 2 additional copies of Kazuha to get, is not worth. And C1 Kazuha I feel like I've gotten more value out of, because C1 Kazuha is kind of like, it's kind of like putting Sack Sword into his kit, wherein you can get the additional grouping utility by like, because let's say there's enemies spawning on these guys, right? And then there's enemies that are spawning over here. They do this crap all the time. You could do something like jump with Kazuha here, and then jump with Kazuha here, and that groups up all the enemies in the general central location here. So having those 2 skills can be really valuable. But C1 Kazuha requires using his burst, versus Sack Sword Kazuha, you just use his skill twice, so you don't have to burst. So again, like C1 Kazuha extends his field time, which means less field time for your DPS, which means a lot of situations it might not be worth using. But I do still feel like there's probably more situations where I feel like I've gotten value out of C1 Kazuha compared to C2 Kazuha. So, yeah. Of like the supportive constellations that I've gotten on my main account, C2 Kazuha has been like the most useless. I rarely find a use for it. Arlecchino C2 or C0R1? I mean, I don't even know what her stuff is going to change. I mean, if you're someone who really wants the interruption resistance because you hate the idea of playing shielders or Xingqiu or Beidou with her, Beidou's, by the way, going to be a very competent option in a lot of circumstances, just because right now it seems like they tweaked Arlecchino to be a bit better for Overload compared to Vape, and that's cool. So that's specifically Overload with Chevreuse, by the way, but anywho's not that she'll be bad for Vape or anything. So I don't know, Arlecchino. Yeah, Kazuha C1 is a lot of fun. Yeah, you feel the fun of Kazuha C1. You basically never feel C2, and trying to use C2 actually just is annoying. It's just an annoying experience trying to use it, because hey, Let's say I want to use Kazuha C2 for Hybrid Raiden. It can be a very significant buff for Hybrid Raiden, right? A case where I can really abuse a flat EM bonus. 200 EM bonus would be a large amount of damage for Hybrid Raiden. But I have to be blind in the friggin' circle while I do it. This is... Ugh. So, ugh. Ugh. Anyways. Enough rambles. C1 helps exploration slightly, 10% skill cooldown. Yeah, that is true. There is the skill cooldown reduction. You're not wrong. So yeah, Arlecchino C2 or C0R1. I would probably say C0R1 realistically, if you're really invested in Arlecchino. There's the like psychological benefit. Like, to be clear, this is just dark pattern BS. The fact that, you know, signature weapons or weapons appear on the back of your character whenever, you know, you click your normal attack once, and then you start just moving, and then you see this weapon staring at you. It's absolutely dark pattern BS. The fact that, like, oh, you know, it's meant to be a little psychological reminder that every time, you know, you start walking around with your character and you see that ugly green stick on your red character, I wish I had staff only. That's why this exists. That's why they do that. It's to make you constantly have thoughts of yourself of wanting to get the weapon that looks nice. Which is some dark pattern psychological manipulation bullcrap, to say the least. But regardless, because of the fact that that is a thing, there is psychological value to just having the one that looks nice. Right? So, you know, there's that, and the fact that it is really good on her. Like, it's obviously really good on her. I don't know if it's even always going to be better because of the potential for her version playstyle, which I think people are, and notably, like, Staff of Scarlet Sands, very well. I haven't done calcs on it, to be clear. I want to emphasize that, and I'm not going to bother doing calcs until her actual release. But if I do a hybrid playstyle with Martial Hunters in a Burgeon team for Arlecchino on Staff of Scarlet Sands, or even for Overload, honestly, it might be the case too, but that would be less likely. Staff of Scarlet Sands for Burgeon might be better with that hybrid playstyle. It's very much a hyper-invested thing, but the point is, like, I can imagine contexts where her signature might not be best. Even if in 95% of contexts it's probably going to be best, right? And it's probably going to be best by at least 10-15%. And I don't know what the exact values of her kit end up with relative to the exact values of what her weapon ends up with will determine how she feels to play with and without her weapon, right? She might feel quite a bit better to play with her weapon. I don't know. The fact that it enables her to have longer field time with her weapon is pretty significant. A lot of players will probably feel the difference between having her weapon and not having her weapon because of the fact that it lets her stay on field longer. And oftentimes people just like going ham, spamming normal attacks with their characters longer on field, and that's what that weapon will be useful for. So as far as like psychological feel for what you will see and what you will feel while playing Arlecchino, I am willing to bet that her weapon is going to be more worthwhile than her constellations for most people. But it also depends a bit on what the exact values end up being. Depends on how you're playing her exactly, the team you're playing her with. Like I said, if you know, I said earlier, the value of her weapon enabling her to get more damage by spending longer on field isn't necessarily that valuable in a team context where, you know, you're doing, say, Raiden and Arlecchino together. If you want to spend time on field doing damage with Raiden, that means you want your Arlecchino to spend less time on field. Therefore, a weapon that makes her stay on field longer to get the damage value out of it is not that good. And yeah, so I don't know. It also potentially has the benefit, though, even in that context, even in the context of like you don't utilize the extra normal attacks that her weapon could give you, like the extra 4-ish normal attacks it could give you, in favor of switching to another character to deal damage with them, like Raiden. You still would get more value from having more Bond of Life on her when you end up using Arlecchino's Burst, which would heal her more. So it actually gives you higher defensive value still in that context. So it's still not useless. is weird. Basically, her weapon is interesting, but it's really only relevant for her too. It's yet another weapon, by the way. Even though Chiori's weapon is actually one of the more okay stat sticks weapons they released this year, it's yet another example of them releasing a weapon that basically is only useful for that character. It's essentially a useless weapon. It's worse than Jade Spear, like for other characters, quite a lot worse than Jade Spear for other characters. So, you know, yes, this is hybrid Raiden. The reason I denote it as hybrid Raiden and not Quick Bloom Raiden is because there's a pretty big difference between using just an EM timepiece versus doing something goofy like using an EM goblet, right? So this is hybrid Raiden, wherein it balances getting good crit based damage and getting big hybrid bloom damage still, whereas a Quick Bloom Raiden is basically, oh, you're mostly focusing on the aggravate damage, but you happen to be getting a little bit of hybrid bloom damage, right? So that's the delineation. And for the hybrid playstyle, in my opinion, I still maintain that you kind of really want this weapon to be able to do it properly, because this weapon is what breaks the balance of elemental mastery. It means even when you're not triggering a reaction, you're getting value from the elemental mastery stat on your character. That's why. But anywho's, and it should do the same thing for Arlecchino. We'll see though. The weapon needs way more wishes. Not really. To be clear, the weapon banner feels worse because it has more RNG. But if you look, right, if you break down the stats, right, it is slightly harder to get a weapon than a character, but not that much harder. If you want to guarantee a character, right, let's use Chiori as an example. If you want to guarantee Chiori from having no pity, right, and from no pity and having no guarantee, you would want to have about 160 wishes planned to be safe. There is, and that's not insignificant, right? Chances are, on average, it will take you closer to when you factor in earlies, and the fact that, you know, it's likely you will get a character before 80 pity, because soft pity starts at 74. Chances are the average is more close to like 120, 130 wishes, if I recall. So on a stats level, the average wishes is about 130, but if you want to make sure you have enough, you should plan on having like 150, 160. 150 is usually the amount I go off of, because if I'm 10 wishes away, I can, like, at any given time, I should be able to get 10 wishes. In the worst case scenario, I can do a lot of quests, do a lot of exploration to get 10 wishes out of the game. But if you hyper explore the game a ton, then maybe that's not an option for you. So either 150 or 160 was what you should plan on, right? And that's based on it taking up to about 70 wishes, 80 wishes to get a character. Anything past 80 is really, really unlikely. Not that it's impossible, but like it's like going anything past 83 is extraordinary. 83 is really, really unlikely. I think it has happened maybe once to me in like all of my accounts that I've gone past 83, 84 pity. Not technically impossible, but very unlikely. So that's why, statistical level, plan on 160. Comparing that to the weapon banner, right? If you want a specific weapon from the weapon banner, the smart thing to do, to be clear, for weapon banner, is to wish on a weapon banner that has value, that has weapons that either of the featured weapons can give you meaningful value. That is the smart way to wish on the weapon banner. And is when the weapon banner, I think, can actually be worthwhile to wish on. Also in conjunction with the 4 stars, like having fab weapons be relevant. Like one funny thing is the Jeff clip I saw lately is how he was mentioning how, like, I want Fav sword on every single character, but I only have one Fav sword. To be clear, he's such a hater of the weapon banner on principle that he just like doesn't wish on the weapon banner. But like he's in a situation where, like, my boy, if there's a banner, my dude, wherein like Zajef could get value from either the 5-star weapons, even if the value is relatively low. But if Zajef can get value from either of the 5-star weapons and Fav Sword is on the banner, the fact that he recognizes he has a need as a long-term player to use a bunch of Favs means like that's a reason to wish on the banner. There is cases where I think it absolutely can make sense. The longer you play Genshin, to wish in the weapon banner. And Zajeff's example of fast sword, I'm just like, dude, I know you hate the weapon banner, but like if I knew him personally, I would be like, but dude, I know you hate the weapon banner. You should probably wish for some Fav swords. Like, not wish just for Fav sword, but like, be smart with it, right? So anyways, but let's assume you're not being smart with it. Let's assume you don't want Redhorn. You only want Chiori and you only want her weapon, right? Okay. Then let's assume the worst case scenario is ignoring the value of the other weapons in the banner. Soft pity for weapon banner starts at 63. You can look it up. You can if you dig, you'll find out that is the case. That's data mined from like millions of wishes that were submitted to Paimon.moe. Soft pity for weapon banner starts at 63. It starts at like about basically a 5% chance. The way that soft pity works is like once you hit soft pity, it goes from like that baseline 0.7% chance on weapon banner, 0.6% on the normal character banner, to like a 5% chance, and then it goes to like 10%, 15%, etc. Right? It doesn't increase in set 5% rates, to be clear. I don't know the exact percentages. I'd have to go look at the data. But point is, once you hit soft pity, you have a much higher chance of getting a 5-star, and then it increases from there. And that's why it makes it extraordinarily unlikely to reach, towards the true hard pity. And in fact, weapon banner, it's actually impossible to hit 80 pity. It is not possible. It is only possible to go up to 80 pity from the data mining that has happened. So this says that you will guarantee a 5-star weapon at 80 pulls. It's not the case. It's actually 77 technically, but and weapon banner going over 70 is very, very unlikely. I have gone over 70 once. I think I'm actually at 70 pity on weapons only, funnily enough. But let's assume 70 pity, I guess, right? Which is not what you should actually assume for weapon banner, because you have a lot higher chance for release. But let's assume 70 pity, because just like you're assuming the worst case scenario for a character, that's 50 more wishes, 70 times 3, right? Because you can potentially lose two 50/50s for a weapon. And you can get a standard banner weapon, then you can get Redhorn, then you can get Chiori's weapon. So that can potentially be 70 times 3. That seems like a lot more, but there's a couple things that also need to be weighed in there. Again, like remember the average of this is 120. Due to the fact that there is a higher chance for earlies and it seems like 0.1% is not that much of an increase of a chance for earlies, right? But it is a difference of like taking it from being like a 1 in, this is a slight simplification, but 1 in 200 pulls is going to be a 5-star on the character banner, which means if you're getting one 5-star character, it's like you really shouldn't, like, there's a good chance you might get an early, but there's also a good chance you will just not get an early in trying to spend 160 wishes for Chiori. So you should really plan on 160, 2 pities worth. An interesting thing on the average rate for early 5-stars on the weapon banner is the average rate for early 5-stars on the weapon banner is much less than the worst case rate, right? The average rate for early 5-stars on character banner is more than the worst case scenario for a 5-star character. The average rate for an early 5-star on the weapon banner is less than the worst case scenario. So all in all, what this turns into is the weapon banner is, on a statistical level, is more RNG. It feels like there's more RNG happening because there's more different possibilities of things that can occur. But on an actual math level of how difficult it is to get a specific 5-star, it's actually very, very close. When you start factoring in the chance for earlies, there's just more potential variance. There is more possibility for things to go wrong. And the fact that the weapon banner, generally speaking, will give you less valuable things than the character banner does in general, because characters are just more useful in this game. 4-star characters and 4-star character constellations are more useful than potentially getting, 80 copies of the Alley Flash. And that makes it so like the net value is not as simple as just weighing the statistics like I'm saying. But my point is, as far as if you're trying to purposely save for these things, on a statistical level, You don't actually have to save 200 wishes, in my experience, to try to guarantee a weapon. It's quite unlikely that it's going to take 200 wishes. But even then, even if you are comparing worst case, it's 40 wishes more, right? It's 160 wishes to guarantee a character versus 200 in the worst case of this character. That's not that different. That's a good chunk more. That's 25% more. 25% more isn't insanely more difficult, right? It's more of a problem, in my opinion, of the weapon banner being less valuable in general. But if you're smart with it, if you can get value from the weapon from both weapons in the banner, get value from the 4 stars in the banner, if you have need for favs on your account, it can absolutely make more sense than going for constellations. And getting a specific weapon is not that much more difficult than getting a constellation for a character. It's just more RNG, right? There is more potential for it to go worse, but there's also more likelihood for it to go better, basically, by nature of the early 5 stars. What's the 160 equivalent of the worst case is 200. But again, the fact that earlies on the weapon banner are more likely, that comparison I mentioned before, where then an early 5 star on if you do a 10 pull on the character banner, it's approximately a 1 in 20 chance. The equivalent chance for an early 5 star on the weapon banner when you do a 10 pull is more like a 1 in 10. Sorry, not a 1 in 10, a 1 in 16, I think, right? If I think I'm doing that mental math approximately correctly. It might be a 0.5% off or something, right? So a 1 in 20 per 10 pull versus a 1 in 15 per 10 pull. And what that means is, right, in the worst case scenario of getting Chiori, it takes 160 wishes. If it's a 10%, or if it's 1 in 20, that's a 5% chance every time you do a 10 pull. That's 1 per 200 wishes. You'd expect an early 5 star 1 in every 200 wishes, right? That 1 in 200 is more. That 1 in 200 chance for an early 5 star is more than the average rate it takes. It's not more than the average rate. It's more than the worst case rate for getting Chiori. But the average, the chance for getting an early 5 star in weapon banner is less than the worst case. It's more like 1 in every 150 wishes. I think once one in 160 or 165, right? 1 in every 165, we'll say, just to be a little bit pessimistic with my estimations, 1 in every 165 is an early 5 star on the weapon banner on an average level, right? That is less than the worst case scenario. Early 5 star on character banner is worse than the worst case scenario. Early 5 star on weapon banner is better than the worst case scenario. And then the point I'm saying that is that it is much more likely to expect you will get an early 5 star on weapon banner. It is more likely to get an early 5 star enough on the weapon banner that you can kind of plan your wishes around it more. You shouldn't 100, if you're dumping all your wishes in the weapon banner, you should still probably plan around either being willing to spend enough money to finish it off, potentially, in the worst case scenario. My point is you can save 160 wishes for the character banner to get Chiori and save 160 wishes for her weapon. And it's quite unlikely you will not wind up with both of them, right? Even though that is technically not enough for the worst case on both, because the worst case for both, you would want another 40 or 50 wishes for the weapon banner potentially. But factoring in the chances for earlies in the weapon banner, and the fact that if you get a standard banner weapon too, the chance for getting this weapon increases for your next 5 star too. Because if you get a standard banner weapon, your next weapon is a 50% chance to be the featured weapon, or the weapon that you want, rather than the 37% chance, which is a weird compacting thing that also slightly increases the chance. But anyways, all in all, getting a specific 5 star weapon is about as difficult as getting a specific character. As far as the amount of wishes you could save, there's just more potential for things to go wrong on the weapon banner, and the weapon banner is lower value in general. But if you save, if you're planning on saving for like, and you have enough saved up, right? Like I have, what do I have here? I have 160 wishes right now. I have another 50 to us, 210. I'll probably have another like 40 by the time Arlecchino's banner comes out. So I'm just gonna say 250, and I think I have about 40 pity right now. So I have about 300, right? I have enough right now where when Arlecchino comes, I should be able to get Arlecchino, and then I should be able to get her weapon. I should expect I should be able to. It's very likely. And if it goes wrong, in the worst case scenario, I need 40 more wishes. My situation is such that I can grind out 40 more wishes either during the patch duration. I can grind out 40 more wishes during exploration. And by patch duration, I mean like events and like login, dailies, whatever, right? And then during the 3 weeks the banner is running. So like 300-ish is like my comfortable amount where like it should be enough to guarantee C0 R1 of a character, which is to say an individual weapon is about as difficult to get as a character, as the character. That seems to be how they balance it out. It's just more variance and less valuable to wish in the weapon banner in general, especially if you don't get value from the other weapon on the weapon banner. In my case, like if I wanted Shiori, I could actually get meaningful value, not on polearms only, but on my main account, I could get meaningful value out of Redhorn. If I didn't just get 2 freaking 5-star claymores, heck, I would have considered wishing on this weapon banner on my main account. It's just like, I don't know. I think there's this, people have this feeling that weapon banner is a lot worse than it is on a statistical level. It's technically about the same difficulty as far as the average rates of getting a specific thing. It's about as difficult as the characters, as a 5-star. 5-star weapon versus 5-star, a specific 5-star weapon versus a specific 5-star character is about the same difficulty. There's just more RNG on the weapon banner, but more chance for a worst case scenario, but also more chance for getting lucky, right? More chances for unlucky is more chance for getting lucky and unlucky in turn, right? It's balanced out, more RNG, but the average is the same. That's a long ramble. So worst case scenario is longer, but the expected value of hitting non-pity 5 stars is about 165. Yeah, so like 300 wishes is what I would recommend saving basically for a weapon. Like if you're being smart, save for the worst case of scenarios. But if we're actually doing the statistics of what the chances are, you usually would not need more than 300. It's just, I don't know, it's just a stupid statistics game of weighing the odds of different things, and it's hard to do because they don't even give you the specific breakdowns in game. But we have enough data from online that it's not that hard to find the information and weigh the risks. The bigger issue again is, like, I keep going back to this. The bigger issue is just the weapon banner itself is not that valuable. That's the bigger issue, because the thing that's actually valuable in this game is characters, right? Characters use weapons. So, you know, the fact that weapons are the same difficulty to acquire as characters is a bit rough, because you need characters to use the weapons. Like, it's a prerequisite. That's why weapons only feels like crap. It's because I didn't have... Uh-oh. The screen just went black. I didn't have the weapons to be able to, you know, use, or I didn't have the characters to be able to use the weapons. And yeah, so, but as far as like difficulty to acquire goes, it's not that different from getting a 5-star character. That's all. I do think it should be easier to acquire. I think well, I don't know. The thing is, like, there's also a double-edged sword, by the way. Like, I think some people haven't realized this, but like Star Rail, for example, a lot of people like that the Star Rail light cone banner. Light cones are weapons in Star Rail, for anyone that's not aware. Doesn't have two weapons on it, so they do separate banners. So like they're running 2 characters right now in Star Rail. They're running a new character and then a rerun character. And there's like the equivalent of having a weapon banner just for Chiori's weapon and just for Ito's weapon. And other than that, though, it's the same. When you get a 5-star, it's a 75% chance. So there's no 37.5% chance. You know, there's no winning the 75-25 and then winning the 50-50 in Star Rail. It's just a 75-25, which means it's a lot more likely when you're, you know, going to 1 pity's worth on Star Rail to get the weapon. It is a lot easier to get the weapon in Star Rail versus Genshin. The indirect problem comes from this on a design level, wherein the fact that Hoyoverse knows that that it is easier for you to get weapons, and the fact that they give you more wishes for free in Star Rail means they are much more likely to design weapons in Star Rail that are more required for characters. Weapons in Star Rail, on average, from what I've seen, and Acheron is probably the best, who's the new character they're just running in Star Rail, is the best example of this I've seen so far, wherein like her weapon, depending on how you do the math from what I've seen, to be clear, so it's a little bit context dependent, but can be up to like 40-50% better, potentially even higher depending on what assumptions you're making on calculating the difference between her weapon and her only other option. She has literally one other option in the game, and it's another gacha 4-star cone, and there are more like 4-star gacha weapons in Star Rail versus Genshin 2, so that even furthers the problem. Like it's less likely you have that one other specific weapon for her. And basically this means like Acheron, this new character in Star Rail, I guarantee you there's a lot more people that feel the need to pull for her light cone. I pulled for her light cone on my Star Rail account, mostly because like she seemed like a fun DPS, and I didn't really have it, and the next characters that are coming I didn't really care about that much, so I was like, I'll go for the chance for it. It was that much of a decision for me. But also the fact that it's so much better, right, is a side effect of the fact that they give more wishes to you, and the weapon is easier to acquire. And because of the fact that they know it's easier to acquire, they design the character's kit more around, like it's more likely for them to design a character's kit and a weapon with a gacha weapon on them that feels more required on them, right? And Acheron's weapon is a very bad sign for Star Rail's design moving forward, for making characters' kits need their 5-star like signature weapon. So functionally, like I'm sorry, like for a lot of people, the cost of getting like Acheron on Star Rail is a lot higher than normal, because of that potential feeling of needing to get her weapon for her to feel as good as she was designed to be. In Genshin, they basically don't do that. The most we ever see a weapon is better by is like 20%, right? Like Nuvilet's weapon is like 20% better than the Battle Pass weapon. And Arlecchino's weapon, who the frick knows, because they keep on changing the values of everything. And again, like I've already talked about her weapon, and the fact that being on field longer isn't objectively a better thing. So ultimately, right, Genshin is more in a situation of, because of the fact that weapons are harder to acquire, they are less likely to design characters' kits to need their weapon. And that's why weapons are almost always in this, like, it's only a 10%-ish damage upgrade to get their signature weapon over whatever other options available. Oftentimes it's only 10-15% better than a free-to-play option, like a craftable weapon. Like Chiori has a very, very, like, one of the best things about Chiori this is probably the biggest thing I missed talking about when I talked about my stream about why Chiori is so boring to me. Was I didn't mention that Harbinger of Dawn is a really, really, really good weapon for her. And and Harbinger of Dawn is so good on her that, in my opinion, it invalidates using this weapon on her, like, or going for this weapon. It just doesn't make sense, in my opinion. Her weapon can be okay as far as like a general stat stick, to be clear, and that makes it potentially slightly more worthwhile to go for, especially because Redhorn is a really good weapon. But it's really only still really good on like 3 characters, and one of those 3 characters is Xinyan, so anyways, point is, like, people don't realize that there's an indirect design consequence of in Star Rail of the weapons being easier to acquire, is that weapons are oftentimes designed to be more relevant, right? And that's potentially makes the characters themselves worse. So a weird indirect benefit of the weapons being hard to acquire is that characters are better, because they're not going to balance. They know that with the amount of wishes they give Genshin players for free, they know that most people do not have enough wishes to guarantee this character. And they don't want you pulling for a character and feeling like, wow, I just wasted 4 months of farming and pulled for this character and they feel like trash to me. They're going to want to make sure that even if you don't spend any money, you're going to hopefully continue playing the game, because if you continue playing the game, you might spend money. If you don't continue playing the game, you're not going to spend money. They need to make it feel like you got something of value for your wishes, regardless of spending your money. And the baseline for that is making sure the character feels good. And if they don't give you enough wishes to realistically ever guarantee a weapon, which they never do, they do not give you enough wishes in Genshin to ever realistically guarantee a weapon. If you're a free-to-play player, if you're acquiring characters and you haven't been playing the game for 2 years, then yeah, you get the point. I think they can't balance characters around weapons when weapons are hard to acquire, because they need to make sure you're still happy with the characters, because that's what's going to keep you playing the game. And if you're not happy with the characters, you're not going to play the game. So, and it's not like that doesn't apply. That logic applies to an extent with Star Rail. It's just that because the weapons are easier to acquire and they give you more wishes to potentially acquire them, they are much more free to design the weapons to be more necessary in Star Rail, like with Acheron on her current situation. So, anyways, Acheron's technique is why I pull for her. I wasn't that interested in her at all, but I logicked myself into pulling for her, into going for a 50-50 for Acheron, specifically because I was like, you know what? She's interesting to play with, like, the sustained Welt situation, and I really like Welt, so hey, getting more value out of Welt is cool. And I won the 50-50 for her, and I was like, okay, cool. And then I had enough left over for a Light Cone, so I went for the Light Cone, and I got the Light Cone too. But yeah, her technique was the main reason I was like, even if I get bored of her playstyle wise or whatever in Star Rail, it's fine, because I'll still have use for her and being able to farm Simulated Universe faster or something. Just being able to one-shot enemies in Overworld, in Overworld and Simulated Universe that aren't elite enemies. So, anywho's, at least this isn't Honkai Impact 3 where characters don't function without their weapons. Yeah, exactly, right. Like, that's the state we don't want. We never want to see in Genshin. And Star Rail is not in the state of needing characters' weapons to function, but there is definitely more need and more of an increase in 5-star weapons on things in Star Rail than there is in Genshin, and that's because they're easier to acquire and because you get more wishes. So and they balance the design of weapons and character kits around that, and the side effect of weapons being harder to acquire is that characters are better. So it's a good thing. It's genuinely indirectly a good thing for character design that weapons are hard to acquire. The real thing, in my opinion, is that these shouldn't exist at all, realistically. Like, these just shouldn't be gacha things, right? Like I think on a healthy game design level, this is just a step too far. I think there's a balance to be had for gacha games, right? I think there's a balance to be had for gacha games to have a healthy amount of things that incentivize you to spend money for, because they need to make money to continue development of the game, right? I'm not gonna be some gacha games are terrible. There's no reason for them to exist. No, there's a monetization model for them to exist as supporting like Genshin does not exist without it being a gacha game. This continued development, the insanity of developing this over multiple years and continually adding content like they had, is not feasible without a monetization model that fuels it, right? But I think stuff like the weapon banner is just it's something that's just been normalized in gacha games that people just accept, and I think it's a step too far in my opinion. Just like I think C6 is existing is a step too far. I honestly think the balance is more just characters up to C2 existing is fine, and then what signature weapons should be is something that as you use Chiori a lot more, you slowly collect a resource that you can then, use to convert into working with the blacksmith to craft her weapon or something, right? And it's something that might take either months of farming for, or you could pay to be able to get faster or sooner, right? But it wouldn't be inaccessible to someone who just wants to spend 2 months getting it slowly over time. That's what these should be. If they're going to exist in game, they should be something that is, you know, just an option to slowly work towards over time, that is accessible just regardless of getting the character. That is accessible just once getting the character, not that, you know, is a separate gacha thing from the character itself. Like, I think it's a step too far. That's my general take on it. This shouldn't exist at all. It's not a problem of, oh, the weapons need to be easier to acquire. It's a, this shouldn't exist. That's my hot take. Anyways. Yeah, there's always cosmetics monetization. Exactly, right? Like, I think gacha games, and Genshin is definitely in this category, do too many things that are like psychological manipulation to get money. And like, it's like, do you really need to make $5 billion? Like, Mihoyo, what is Mihoyo's valuation? Let me check. Like, what, or Mihoyo's estimated revenue. Mihoyo estimated, and revenue is not the same as profit, to be clear, but I'm willing to bet it's a very pretty penny of profit. The only like cost Mihoyo has is their employees, so, and paying them to create the things that, you know, are in game. Revenue. So $4 billion of revenue in 2022 is the estimate that shows up on Google when I initially check. And that's before like Star Rail came out too. I think Star Rail probably increased their revenue a bit, even if Star Rail isn't as like a popular as Genshin. Nintendo revenue 2022. Nintendo revenue in comparison in 2022 was $12 billion. That seems like a big difference. Mihoyo, one game company, Mihoyo, one game company making a few gacha games, has 1/3 the revenue of Nintendo in 2022. What? Like, do you really need to make $4 billion? Do they really need the money they get from the weapon banner? Would Genshin really not exist as it is if the weapon banner didn't exist? That's basically my argument. I think it's a step too far. I think the balance, as far as, you know, not being a hyper predatory but still supporting the model for creating the game, does not include the weapon banner. Or the equivalent in a gacha game. So, anyways, if I ever make a gacha game, I can tell you it will not have a weapon banner. I probably will never make a gacha game, to be clear. I'm just throwing a funny out there. So, anywho's, I genuinely think there's a way to have like a more balanced, healthy gacha game that gives value to the enjoyment and the dopamine of RNG, gambling mechanics, without being hyper predatory. But hey, Genshin is, to give Genshin credit, to be clear, Genshin is the best gacha game I've seen, as far as making the game not just be a gambling simulator. Like, to give them credit where credit's due. The design of this game and how it functions, it's a bit rough as far as acquisition. Like, it's insane that I can, you know, show my friends, hey, look at all these cool things and cool mechanics about Genshin. I might make this video eventually. Where I basically show my friends who are very, like, my friends who like are game devs. One of them just started working for Crytek, and one of them works for Santa Monica Games. I could show them this game and show them a lot of cool mechanical things and ideas in Genshin, and then I would have to tell them, LOL, if you want to play the game, have fun playing for literally 2 years and having to potentially spend $500 to $1,000 or more, depending on how lucky or unlucky you get, to be able to even approach close to what I can do in this account. like that's insane. That's dumb. It's really dumb. The time issue of like artifacts and like the grindiness of this game, to be able to actually play around with the fun mechanical things, I think, and like the grindiness of like it just taking you a long time to get the characters you want. One, because it takes a long time to get the resources to get them, but two, because they're doing FOMO model of you can only acquire Chiori when Chiori's banner is running. Chiori is probably not going to show up for another year or 3 days from now, right? So like, if you love Chiori for whatever reason in this game, and like if I showed Chiori to my friends and they for some reason were like, I love Chiori, but I happened to show them Chiori after Chiori's banner was running, I'd be like, LOL, have fun waiting a year. Because she's probably not showing up for a year or more, let's be real. Or if she does show up within less than a year, it's probably because they're trying to fast track her to the Chronicle banner. So, anywho's, boy, this stream got a little bit off topic for the purpose of talking about Arlecchino, to say the least. Why did I even start talking about it? Oh, because I was talking about like the difficulty to acquire her weapon. Yeah, so like, I don't think the difficulty of acquiring Arlecchino's weapon on a how many wishes you should expect it to take level is that much more difficult than acquiring her constellations. And right now, I think most people are more likely to get more value out of getting her weapon than her constellations. Unless you're someone who really, really, really values that interruption resistance potential and not having to use defensive units with her. On top of the damage increase that C1 gives. Like, it's a good constellation, right? But yeah, particularly if you're considering C2. Like, because I think the question asked in chat before was C2 Arlecchino versus C0R1. C0R1 Arlecchino should be easier to acquire than C2R1. Or sorry, than C2, not C2R1. Obviously C2R1 is more difficult than C0R1. but C0R1 versus C2, C0R1 should be easier to acquire. So, yeah. But ultimately it's going to be dependent. It's a gotcha game. It's gambling. So like, LOL, if you get C2 in a single 10 pull versus it taking 130 pulls to get the weapon, well then in that case, in reality, it was easier for you to get C2 than it was to get C0R1. But you don't know how it's going to work before it happens. On a statistical expectation though, it will be more difficult to get a C2R0 versus a C0R1. Will you feel the difference between C2 if you have enough for either? Like if you have 450 wishes saved, so you have enough to guarantee C2, would it feel like it'd be better to like get C2 and then just use like Staff of Homa or Jade Spear on her, or get C1R1 or C0R1 and stop it there? I don't know. If you have that many wishes saved, it's a little bit harder to decide. Having been in the place of, you know, having like 450, 500 wishes saved when this is the wrong account, when Freena's banner came around, I kind of wish in hindsight, I wish I hadn't thrown all my wishes. Like I was able to guarantee C2 Freena, which is cool. I was able to guarantee C2 Freena without spending anything. It's the first high constellation thing I got in this game that I didn't spend a ton of money to get. Well, no, not the first one. I think Yai. Technically Yai I got C2. Without spending a bunch of money, but that was one I got luckier because I won. No, sorry, I had to spend money the first time I got Yai because I really loved Yai. Yai was like one of the first characters I spent money for because I really loved Yai and I was impatient. And I lost the 50-50 for Yai. She literally came out when like a couple months after I first started playing, and I was like, she was the character I was super excited to get. So no, I had to spend money for Yai even. So yeah, I think Farina's the only character I have gotten high constellation on that I haven't had to spend. By high constellation, I mean C2. I count C2 as a limited 5 stars high constellation, high investment, whatever. Able to get that without spending a ton of money, or without spending any money. I spent nothing. I want to emphasize that. And that's cool, but also I can tell you, like, because of the fact that I ended up spending money to get freaking, this poem's only to get C6 Farazan on my main account. I ended up spending money anyways, like 2 months later. I indirectly spent money on Farina because if I hadn't spent all my 500 wishes on Farina, I would have had extra wishes for Farazan, right? So like, whoops, hindsight is 2020, right? So I can tell you savings probably better. You want a summary of the Arlecchino rambles? Summary is that I think she's going to be a jack of all trades, master of some. I think she's going to be very good. Her values are all her exact values of like how long she's going to stay on field, how many normal attacks to get out of her, what her multiplier is going to be, seem to be getting changed wildly. She got a complete rework last week, which was like it made her more relevant for Overload, a little bit less relevant for Vape. But regardless, she's a Pyro carrier. She's going to be pretty good. The fact that she has her Bond of Life gimmick all you really need to know about it is it gives her, right, how much. Bond of Life is just like a little resource meter on her bar functionally for her. She can't be healed externally. She only heals herself with her burst. And her Bond of Life mechanic is just basically a resource meter on her bar that determines how long she can keep her infusion up for, right? Instead of it being like Hu Tao, where it's just a timer-based infusion, it's how much Bond of Life do you have is what determines how much infusion she has. And you gain Bond of Life by killing enemies that are marked with their skill. You gain Bond of Life by doing a charge attack on enemies marked with their skill. So how long she can stay infused for depends a little bit on AoE versus single target content, and it's also going to depend on what exactly they freaking end up putting the exact values at, because we'll see what they end up doing. But a really, 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 really big thing, and why I think she's going to be a jack of all trades as far as pyro carries, and why I like her, is because I think she's going to have a very high amount of team versatility, because unlike Hu Tao, where once you start pyro applying, right, you can switch however, use a character, switch back, oh, her pyro infusion is gone, and I still have a 10-second cooldown left, right? Arlecchino can swap off, you can swap back to her, and she will still have her infusion, right? It's possible that gets changed, but I'm pretty sure it won't. And that is a really big deal as far as like flexibility for allowing you to do things like swapping into another character and using their skill again per rotation. There's a lot of characters who can gain a meaningful value from using their skill twice per rotation. It allows more freedom to have rotations that are less like, gotta do X amount of things in 20 seconds, and more like, okay, how about the fact that Xiangling has a 12-second cooldown, you can do a 25-second rotation with Xiangling in an Arlecchino team and do 2 Guobas per rotation, right? Like, how valuable is that exactly? Well, it probably depends a little bit on how much Guoba is actually going to hit the enemy. Oh, my screen just went black. I should restart my computer before I commit suicide. And, right, that's going to reduce Xiangling's energy needs. When I was talking about, like, Rosaria and Shenhe earlier with Arlecchino, where, like, Arlecchino can be an on-fielder and freely allow Shenhe and Rosaria to be swapped out to be able to use their skills multiple times per rotation, and they really want to be able to do that multiple times per rotation. So she's going to be very versatile is my current take, and that versatility is a very big strength, because having flexibility for being able to configure teams in different ways to deal with different situations is kind of what the Abyss comes down to more often than not. And I think most players are going to feel like they get more value out of Arlecchino by nature of she works with a lot of different team formats, right? Anywhere you can envision a pyro carry being useful in, she's probably going to be useful in. And I suspect she's going to uniquely be best in certain archetypes too, so she's going to be a jack of all trades, master of some is my guess. And that, in my opinion, puts her at a very healthy state. And she has nice movement mechanics. Like, I really love Rosaria. Rosaria's skill is sometimes awkward, to be clear. Because if an enemy dies,
make sure to keep up.
Either if Rosaria either is too far away and she doesn't hit the enemy with her skill, or notably if she doesn't hit with the second part of her skill, because it has 2 hits, she doesn't get particles off of it. So that's kind of awkward. But Arlecchino's is less awkward than Rosaria because it doesn't have the 2-hit thing to get particles, and has more movement. Like, Arlecchino, I think, jumps like something like twice the distance that Rosaria does, and I find Rosaria's movement ability really useful. I really like having little movement abilities in combat like that. Again, another thing of versatility. It means she can like be used in more situations for the Abyss when they spawn, one enemy here and then one enemy here. You can just go ham on the enemy here and, blam, blah, 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 blam, kill it, and then use her skill, blam, teleport to the butthole that's just sitting over here doing nothing, and whack on them, right? Versus feeling like you have to use Kazuha to group them together, or have to manipulate their behavior to get them to walk towards you and end up in the same location together. She's going to be very versatile, and that versatility is a very big strength in my opinion. It's the number one thing I look for in on-fielders. It's the number one thing I look for in characters in general in Genshin, but like off-field characters tend to have natural versatility by nature of being off-field. Off-field characters have versatility because 3 of your 4 characters are off-field at any given moment. That means it's more likely you can use off-field characters in more teams, right? Whereas on-field characters have to have more nuance in their kit to have versatility, and I think Arlecchino has that nuance. So she might end up being a little bit clunky to play, by the way. I don't know. That's a feel thing, and in my opinion, I gotta play her to give you my judgment of whether or not I feel like she's gonna be clunky. I think some players might find her a bit clunky. I think she'll be fine. I don't think it's gonna be as clunky as I find like Al Haytham to be, personally. But you know, there might be some players that don't like it, and so that's a factor. For the most part, I think it's going to be pretty easy to get used to playing her, and she won't be hard to play, and she won't be clunky, is my guess, but I could be wrong. So yeah, that's, I think, my general summary on Arlecchino. I'm very bullish about her Virgin archetype, especially because the Virgin archetype enables her to use Marshals Hunters. She's a tanky unit. She's going to be more survivable than I think people give her credit for. And, yeah. And she might have very good Candace synergy, with the asterisk of, as always, for Candace to be useful, Candace kind of really wants C6, but that's just a Mihoyo design problem of designing some of the Sumeru 4-stars to basically require C6 for their kit to actually make sense. But hey, you know what? Candace synergy is Candace synergy, and I can't really envision a Pyro character, a Pyro on-fielder at least, that has more synergy with Candace than Arlecchino does. I could be wrong. She might still access, like, the exact timings of when the Hydra application happened from Candace related to when Arlecchino applies Pyro might be mismatched and might cause it not to work well, but Candace be normal attack buffer. Candace gives AoE Hydro, like small but not irrelevant AoE, and Arlecchino has small but not irrelevant AoE, versus, you know, characters like Xingqiu, Yelan being completely relegated to single target. So situations like this Abyss, this current Abyss cycle in the first half is potentially very relevant. Might enable a lot more vapes, so like normal attack buffing, you know, blah 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 blah. Candace has pretty good synergy, and the control over front-loaded Hydro for like potentially vaping her burst or whatever. Yada yada. Teams you think of for Arlecchino for your poems only account? This is what I'll end the stream with, because I'm hungry, and I have actually plans with my friends to go play Helldivers, I think, with them. But basically, Overload variations are realistically going to be one of the strongest variations. Overload variations on poems only are probably going to be about as strong as Overload team variations for a normal account. And Overload team variations with C6 Chevreuse, like I have in poems only, are going to be one of Arlecchino's strongest teams. So, yeah, it's going to be a strong option. This Melt team, though, like I was mentioning, because of the fact that her infusion is kept when swapped off field, I can use Shenhe's and Rosaria's skills multiple times per rotation. Means I can use Arlecchino in place of Xiangling here. There is a chance that she doesn't apply enough Pyro to enable Rosaria to melt consistently, because like maybe Shenhe will steal some of the Pyro aura and then Rosaria won't get the melts. And if that happens, then that means there's going to be cryo aura on the enemy, and that means Arlecchino's going to trigger melt instead, which would be fine, because melt, like a forward melt, is very big. It's actually technically more valuable than doing a reverse melt. But if that does happen, that means I do have to reconfigure Rosaria's build a little bit to be configured over raw cryo damage versus her build that is currently configured for reaction damage with Gilded Dreams. So, you know, I might have to tweak the build around potentially on how it works out, but either way, either she applies enough Pyro or she doesn't apply enough Pyro. Like if she applies too much Pyro, or if she applies enough Pyro, then I have to change nothing for this team other than just use Arlecchino, and Rosaria will be really good, and it probably is just going to be really, really good. Or she doesn't apply enough Pyro, and that means if she doesn't apply enough Pyro, that means she's the one melting, and that means, you know, a forward melt on Arlecchino is going to be a big damage number, to say the least. So yeah, and Zhongli is replaceable here in this team, by the way. I could replace him with Tolma if need be as well, which might be a way to get additional Pyro application in this team to be able to have enough Pyro to enable Rosaria melt consistently. So I'm very confident this is going to work quite well. This team is already a strong type archetype, and it's going to give a big advantage of that is that this frees up Xiangling, right? Because like a problem I can't do now is like Xiangling, go figure, as a Pyro character doing off-field Pyro damage is really nice for Chevreuse team variations. Oftentimes I have felt if I wanted to play this team, I have had to like use a Chevreuse team on the second side since getting Chevreuse, but then I have to use like Toma as the last slot instead of Xiangling, and that makes the team's damage way worse. By nature of having Arlecchino for this team, that means Xiangling can be in the Overload team. That's a big deal. So again, like she's going to give more potential team options by nature of just that. And then there's potential Virgin shenanigans in this team. Like I could just slot in Arlecchino here instead of Zhongli or Raiden. I'm not sure exactly which variation, right? It might not work very well because the interaction of Candace and Yaoyao creating a lot of bloom cores specifically wants Yaoyao to spend a bunch of time on field. So I don't know how well it's going to work with Arlecchino. But the thing is, Yaoyao doesn't need to spend that much time on field. She just needs to spend a few seconds on field to like, generate some stuff, apply some cores. I could, and being that Arlecchino, again, is versatile, she's flexible, she keeps her infusion when swapped out, I could do stuff with Arlecchino, swap to Yaoyao, do Yaoyao's burst, swap back to Arlecchino, have the infusion still, do Arlecchino things. I think it'll work. How well, I don't know exactly on this account. I think a Burgeoning Arlecchino is going to work much, much better on a normal account. And this account is a bit more iffy, but I'll try it. And I think that's probably... Oh, and then, you know, there's just pure vape context, I guess. I should add that. I can just add that in here as a template. If Candace applies enough Hydro to vape consistently on Arlecchino's normal attacks, like I think it will, I can just do like pure vape incentivized and do Yunjin. Yunjin is a normal attack buffer, and most of her damage is normal attack damage. How much relative value Yunjin will give to Arlecchino is a bit iffy. I am not sure. And this team format, like, pretend Hu Tao is Arlecchino, by the way. This team format would have a flex slot that could be, you know, it could be Chevrus. Chevrus would give Pyro Resonance, and Chevrus would also, you know, give Pyro Particles, and Chevrus would give Pyro Damage bonus because I have her C6. Xiaoling is an option for off-field damage. You know, Toma's a defensive option if need be. Which I don't think will necessarily be necessary. I don't think I will need a defensive option with Arlecchino because of the fact that she can heal. It'll just depend on how much damage I take from my off-fielders, so it's going to be a more high skill variation if I'm not playing with, you know, Zhongli. Zhongli is an option here, obviously. So, you know, vape Arlecchino is an option too, so I'll just leave this here. It's possible that might not work again, because like if the timing for Candace's Hydro application doesn't line up right, it might not work very well, but I think it will. I'm pretty confident on it. Vape Arla. So yeah, the last slot is just kind of a flex slot. I could even put Xiao for swirling. Well, no, Xiao wouldn't really. Well, no. Sorry, Xiao would work because rotations for Arlecchino usually do something like use her skill, then swap to other characters. So because of that, unlike Hu Tao, wherein you know you use Hu Tao and then you have to stay on field with her, you can't do like swirl setups with Hu Tao. Generally speaking, you can't do swirl setups with Hu Tao as the only pyro unit. So that means like swirl setups with Hu Tao where you actually swirl pyro, usually use something like Amber, right? Like so like there's like I think like the Amber on Elegy Kazuha Hu Tao team is a thing that people use on occasion. It's a pretty glass cannon Hu Tao, I believe, but it can get some really, really big damage numbers by nature of Kazuha's buff and whatnot. But you need a second pyro unit to do that. For Arlecchino, you wouldn't need that because Arlecchino uses her skill, applies pyro to enemies, then you can swap to other character, and then use Xiao to buff a little bit. So, like, point is, this team actually has a surprisingly high number of options. So, assuming Arlecchino can vape semi-consistently, and Yunjin's buff is relevant, depending on what I'm doing on the other side, will depend on what character I want to put in the last slot here, right? And there's a lot of options, right? So you can kind of see this is just like this is a polearm only account, right? I'm limited to specifically polearm characters, and right off the bat, I'm like, I can do this team, this team, this team, this team. That's a sign of her versatility. That's a sign of her strength. I couldn't even do that with Hu Tao, and Hu Tao ended up being a very relevant character. If I can do this before having Arlecchino, how useful is she actually end up being? like the saddest thing about Arlecchino is, for this account, I honestly think Arlecchino will be replacing Hu Tao in many of the contexts I would normally use Hu Tao in. So, like, and Hu Tao is one of the strongest characters for this account. So it's, yeah. And on an account that has more than just polearm characters you can use, the world is your oyster as far as Arlecchino team options. Pyro is a strong element for a carry DPS, and Arlecchino will likely end up being pretty strong, is my current vibe. I could be wrong because her values are kind of all over the place and keep on getting changed because, I don't know, they don't know what they want to exactly settle her at. We'll see. But I don't think most of the fundamental ideas I talked about are going to change. So, yeah. It's very unlikely things like her amount of pyro application changes. It's pretty unlikely, in my opinion, that her that they changed that aspect of her Bond of Life staying on her off field. And yeah, I think that's all I got. Can you use Plunge Arlecchino with her infusion, or is it only normal in charge? You can use Plunge Arlecchino, but if I recall, her plunges don't get the multiplier bonus from her. Like, basically, she has a multiplier bonus that multiplies. It's a multiplier that multiplies her multiplier, that also multiplies based on the Bond of Life percentage that she currently has. So the less Bond of Life you have, the less the multiplier that multiplies your multiplier does for Arlecchino. I know that sounds really dumb, but this is how her kit works. Her kit is way overly convoluted for what the end result is, which is basically, wow, Arlecchino do big normal attack damage. But yeah, basically you from what I recall, you lose the on plunges. Even though you do have the high plunge multiplier, you don't get the bonus. But you do get a really nice animation, like it's this deep crimson red. So not that there's like I'll try Plunge Cloud Retainer, or Plunge Cloud Retainer. I'll try Plunge Arlecchino just for like how nice, like, and like cool dark deep red crimson and like black fire flames and whatever you have going on is cool for plunges. But it's probably not something I'll play long term. But it should be an option. It might have some problems with the rework they did last week though, but we'll see. Anyways, yeah. Your Chevy is C6, doesn't that give the 60% power bonus? Yes, yeah. I very specifically made sure to get the reason we have C3 Ryan is because we were going for C6 Chevreuse. Like, I said as much when I wished for Raiden and Chevreuse that if Chevreuse wasn't on Raiden's banner, I still would have prioritized Chevreuse constellations over Raiden constellations, which I think to most players is not a very obvious thing to do, but it is a no-brainer for me on this account. Like, yeah, C6 Chevreuse is a pretty significant deal, and will remain relevant because they keep on releasing Pyro pole arms, and I feel like the next Pyro, if we're not gonna get Pyro pole arms, I feel like it's just gonna be Electro pole arms. I'm surprised Chlorine is not a pole arm user. Anywho's, I'm just memeing at this point. It's just funny how I get only Pyro pole arms. Yeah, but it's fine because honestly, Pyro's pretty great. It works well, and we got Chevreuse now, and she's a ridiculous character for this account. I think she's a really great character in general. I've been wildly impressed by how she functions without her C6 on my main account. But her C6 can be the difference maker between her making a lot of sense to use and her just being a competent option, right? So her C6 is very good, but she's not unusable at all without C6. And I think, like, as far as characters that have valuable C6s go, compared to like what I rambled about with Sumeria 4 stars earlier, I don't feel like her C6 is necessary at all. And it's a bit situational too, because it only benefits your on-fielder, and you have to wait on-field a little bit to get the damage bonus. So there's situations like Raiden where it doesn't even... Raiden, oftentimes when I use her burst, like I switch to Raiden and immediately use her burst. But because I immediately use her burst, I didn't have any time to have Raiden on field to get the damage bonus going, and therefore I didn't get that much benefit from Raiden with Chevreuse C6. It's not useless, but it's not as useful as it otherwise could be. For someone like Arlecchino, because her damage is more split out across multiple instances anyways, that aspect of the damage bonus taking a little bit to stack up is not as bad for Arlecchino. So it does kind of feel like Chevreuse C6 was designed in part with Arlecchino, or maybe Arlecchino was designed more in part with Chevreuse C6. I don't know, since Chevreuse did come out first. But anywho's, it's a really good constellation. I really hope Chevreuse ends up on with how synergistic Chevreuse is for Arlecchino. I really hope Chevreuse ends up on Arlecchino's banner. And if you think like it's too soon for Arlecchino rerun, like they run synergistic units. They right. They're running Goro with Ito, right? And Yunjin, because they're trying to make you pretend that Chiori can be a normal attack damage dealer. Not that you can't. You can do that. Don't let me stop you. I'm just poo-pooing because I dislike Chiori's kit. But anyways, this banner is not even that good of an example. But the point is, they usually include some number of synergistic units on banners, like at least one. They don't usually run banners that have a 5-star and have 4-star characters with them that are useless with them. I think there's a good chance Hoyoverse, as it stands right now, ends up on her banner, which would be super cool because that means I might be able to get her C6 on my main account, and I would greatly like that. But we shall see. It would be a dick move of them to do something like put Hoyoverse on Chlorine's banner, to say the least. We'll see. We'll see. All right. I think that's all I got. I've rambled for freaking almost 4 hours. I intended the stream to be not 4 hours. That's always what I intend. Oh well, is what it is. I'm gonna go play Helldivers with my friends. So this is probably the last stream, by the way, for a little while. I know I said I wanted to stream more, but the reason being is because next weekend I am actually going on a trip to visit my friends. We're gonna go try to see the solar eclipse in the United States. So that's cool. We'll see if the weather is good. But I'm basically going to be gone for a week-ish, and so no stream next weekend, maybe the weekend after, but no guarantees because that might be the weekend I'm getting back from my trip. I don't actually know how long I'm staying. I'm not going to give you all the details of my trip, but yeah, it's a weird trip because I'm not actually paying that much to stay there. Anyway, whatever. Don't need details. Point is, I don't know when I'm actually coming back from my trip. I should have videos prepared and ready for the weekend, though. So, you know, there'll be content, but no streams. So only my edited rambles for you, not my unhinged live stream rambles. But hey, on the upside, once I get back from my trip, Arlecchino should be very close. I think Arlecchino will be like a week away. If you want my updated thoughts as Arlecchino gets changed, check the Discord link in the description of this video. Because my thoughts will probably be in the Genshin Leaks channel of my Discord server. I doubt I will do another stream specifically talking about Arlecchino unless something wildly changes that I feel like I need to correct about her. I'm just gonna unlist this stream, by the way. If they end up making it so her Bond of Light doesn't stay on her off field, I will unlist this stream because so much of my thoughts about her changes if that happens. And but anywho's, yeah, and go check out that Genshin animation that's linked in the description too if you missed that from early on in the stream. Yeah, I'll do the driver restart. Thank you.